I'm just asking. Like, how do you end up in government?
How I ended up in government.
Was this analog to digital very necessary?
If we had not migrated, by the way, you wouldn't be running a podcast today. Let's begin from there.
So, of course, like one of the controversies from your time at the Ministry of Education was the whole Ruaraka land thing. So, how did that work? We could see trucks going to Kisumu, and you see that's used as a what can be classified as intimidation of the opposition. So that's whatever was happening a few weeks back is what happened during that time. So how can we justify the heavy police presence in Kisumu? Do you remember in 2017 you released a statement and you asked people not to share images of what was happening in Kisumu? And that's the reason why I always say that a lot of atrocities committed by the Uhuru government never went on record. That's we are going to live in these rosy places. And for me, when I think of your stint as an interior minister and I look at the stint of Murkomen and Kindiki, I don't see a difference. I see death in all that. And you're three very different people. So why is this death constant?
Iko Nini?
Yeah, so as you can see, we have Dr. Fred Matiang'i, and this is a conversation that I've been really looking forward to.
I wonder why.
And yeah, so I want us to understand Fred Matiang'i, because before Doctor, there was just Fred, the child. So where did the child grow up in?
First of all, thank you so much, Mwafrika.
Yeah.
My young people tell me the short form of your name is Mwaf.
Yes, it's Mwaf. Yeah.
So Mwaf, thank you so much for this opportunity to be here.
Yeah.
People ask me this question all the time about, and other people say, oh, we don't know you so much. And it amazes me because, you can be in public life or you can think you are in the public layer.
Yes.
Yet actually people say or people feel that they don't know certain dimensions about you. And then sometimes I find people who say, oh, he probably just has been in the US. He has just arrived in Nairobi from the US.
Yes.
But look, I am a peasant son. I was born in Nyamira, in Borabu, precisely. And for 7 years, I did CPE. I went to Manga Primary School.
Okay.
My primary school headmaster, Mr. Jeremiah Muguna, is still alive. In fact, I met him the other day in a funeral, and I was thoroughly impressed to meet him. And I'm going to shoot some video with him one of these fine days because I have very fond memories of him and the life we led at the primary school.
So he was your primary school teacher?
He was my primary school headmaster.
Oh, headmaster.
Yeah, still strong, going strong in the village and looking good.
Yes.
And I mean, I remember all those teachers, Madam Florence Obare, Mr. Ondabu, Mwalimu Simwamu, we nicknamed him Kigongo, and so on, in the village where I went to primary school for 7 years. I walked to and from school every day. I mean, my father didn't even have a bicycle.
Yes.
I was a peasant son in the village, like any of those peasant sons. If you know Borabu very well, maybe I need to give you a background to this. Borabu, part of Nyamira County, is a settlement scheme, like part of Uasin Gishu or part of Bomet County and so on. There were colonial settler farms that were allocated to peasants in rural parts of Kenya at independence through the SFT, the Settlement Fund Trustee at independence, where peasants were selected through balloting from the poor of the poorest families. In most cases, actually, the people, my late father told me that the people who were used to do those selections usually were religious leaders, pastors or priests, and the chiefs. They're the ones who identify the poorest homes in the rural areas, and then people will be selected from those poorest homes. Then they allocated pieces of land in the new colonial farms that had been abandoned by the white settlers. And then what used to happen at that time is that you would be given, say, for example, 40, 50 acres They were not evenly distributed. It depends on, I mean, the part of the land. Some have as much as 50 or others 100 or whatever the case may be. But anyway, my father got 46 acres.
Oh, 46.
Yeah, and then you are given the land, you are given 2 dairy animals, a plow, the one that's pulled by oxen.
Yes, yes.
And then the government pays some amount of money for you. And then you have to pay the rest in form of a loan for several years until you clear, and then you get the title deed.
Okay.
If you worked hard because you're given the land to till and raise your children and family on it, and from the sales and the business you would do, you then would pay the loan. And that, after you paid the loan, if you successfully do, you are then finally given the title deed.
Okay.
So my late father was one of those farmers who got that land and worked hard on it. I mean, I remain, some dimensions of this can be emotional, but I remain very, very grateful, and I thank the Lord for him. My dad was very, very hardworking. He's one of those few farmers who actually paid up for their land and finally got the title deeds.
Okay.
Some of those peasant farmers, for one reason or the other, they have challenges. Others have come from environments where they had 1 acre or 1.5 acres, because you see, they all came from very poor families.
Yes.
Where my dad came from, he probably, I don't think he had more than 3 acres. He would have finally had more than 3 acres if my grandfather's land was subdivided to all of them. I don't think he would even have had 3 acres. So some of those farmers, for some reason, come from that kind of background. You get 40 acres. You think you have just gotten a ranch. And some would even be tempted to enhance their families, marry a second or third wife, because they're now rich. I mean, if you have come from 2 acres and you now have 40 or 50, imagine the mind of that kind of peasant farmer and so on. Fortunately, my dad was not one of those who were excited about that bit, and therefore added 1 or 2 more mothers to me. He stuck with his one wife, who was my mother. And then now, that's how I grew up in the settlement scheme, going to the primary school in Manga every day. And what is also instructive is that, maybe I should say, I don't know whether this is an important detail to say, but anyway, let me say it nonetheless. My dad was also the chairman of the school committee, the primary school where I went to. The downside of that is that anytime you see, every so often when, the way schools used to collect levy during those days, building fund. I mean, it wasn't that much money to write home about. It probably was 300 or 400, whatever the case may have been. And those who have not completed, would be sent home, which would provide people an opportunity to hang around and to go to the local river and swim and so on. I didn't have that opportunity, because my father was the chairman of the school committee. So he's the one who would be sending people, or would be reading the names of those who have not completed. So I didn't have the opportunity to have those French leaves, in between the time where I could vanish or something like that. And then obviously, because he was the chairman of the school committee, he was present all the time. So you wouldn't, play games, because if anything went wrong, the teachers would tell him immediately. There was no cell phone that time. But at least on an ordinary 1 week, he would be in school, once or so, for this or that or the other, and so on. And so if there was any misbehavior, he would know it promptly. So that is how I grew up. Those are the circumstances in which I grew up. And then all the way going to high school.
It was a family of how many children?
Here in Africa, we don't count people. My family was very big.
Yeah.
You can imagine a rural, huge family. And we, and my mother, of course, peasant mother out there who sold, farm produce and other things to look after us and ensure that we made by and we went along. I told this story another day to an audience in the US, and And if there's any ordinarity about my growing up, it's this. I don't know anybody in this world who's more patient than my mother. I mean, honestly speaking, my mother is the most patient person I've ever known in all my life.
How many children
Because of the fact that, I'll come to that later, because of the fact that as I was going to school in this rural place, my mother would go and sell milk, masiwamala, in the marketplace. The market days were usually on Sundays and Thursdays. So she would go and sell the milk, sell stuff, mboga and stuff like that, and buy a dozen of pencils. I was notorious for losing I was young.
Yeah.
That is it. So we were very playful, climbed trees. Our school was next to a former colonial white settlers' home. They had planted a lot of fruit around that place. There were very nice guavas there, in that compound. And we always climbed those guava trees, And partly that's how I lost my pencils almost every day. And my mother, I remember this day, and I can say without fear of contradiction that if I didn't have such a patient mother, I probably would never have gone to school or succeeded, because every damn single day, my mother sharpened early in the morning a pencil for me. And I actually lost it promptly every day. Because you see, the way it is in rural areas. You are playing in the grass, you are running around there, life is just about fun. You're climbing trees, coming down, going places. And I just promptly lost my pencil every day. And, she did. I tell my kids about the antics that my mother had to play to help me at least keep a pencil for more than one day. Making a hole on my my collar here, so that she told me, look, the way the uniforms used to be made in the village, those khaki uniforms, they are sewn like this, and then she would make a hole here and show me in the evening before the school the following day, that after you're finished writing, before you go to climb trees, please squeeze the pencil in here and make sure it doesn't, because it will not come out even if you climb the tree. But it's still, I don't know how, it just got lost. And then she even tied around a string and told me, okay, don't remove it, let it be around your neck, and write on, with it and keep it there. When you go out, make sure it is there. But that horrible pencil, I don't know what happened with it. It's always got lost. But you see, what is a lesson of life to me was my mom. There was not a single day she was angry. Every morning as I put on my uniform to go to school, I told her, Mommy, I don't have a pencil. And she always got the 12 pencils in a dozen. And sometimes she would cut them either into 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Because she knew I was going to lose. So she would just have a dozen cut, they end up becoming 24 or something like that. Then she sharpens them every morning, give me a piece, which I would proceed to lose and so on. So anyway, long story short, that's how I grew up. I mean, I'm telling you that to show that, contrary to what a lot of people think, I'm as ordinary and as kawa as they come.
Okay.
I mean, that is the rural life we grew up in. That is the environment in which I grew up in. Went to high school in the rural areas. Then finally ended up at Kenyatta University.
Okay. I wanted to understand, how many children are you, and what in what order? Like, are you the firstborn, secondborn?
No, I am actually the 6th child of my parents, but my parents' firstborn son.
Oh, okay.
So some of my siblings are, my sisters are big, they're long-haired grandchildren and stuff like that.
Okay.
So that's the context in which I grew up. And then, in Africa, by the way, and I also grew up like that. My grandfather was a notorious polygamist. Frankly, the other day I was remembering, nobody has actually even told me exactly how many grandmothers I should be having from that arrangement. But anyway, there are many. Let's just say there were quite a number.
Yes.
And then in the process, some of the cousins come and stay with you, other people, you have so many relatives. By the way, the joke that I normally crack is that if I went to where my parents grew up in South Mogrango, every time I've gone there, even in my adult life, from the place, the road where you branch off from the bridge, In fact, one of my uncles was telling me from this bridge, 10 or 15 kilometers inside, almost everybody in this village here has got some blood relationship with you of one kind or the other. Originating from that notorious polygamous background and so many cousins.
Yeah.
I don't know, we always joke with my siblings whether there's anyone who has an accurate census of how many there are. And you will never know them. And in fact, like my father, before my dad died, if you drove around with my father in the village, you lost a lot of your time because you stop after every 100 meters. Says, no, stop. This is your angle. Make sure you know. I used to tell him, you know, I need a computer to key them in every time so that I can know all of them because you see, everyone is my uncle, everyone is my auntie, everyone is. Then he tells you a story around it. This one and the other one, the dowry of this one is the one that was used to pay for that one to be married. You know, the way he was explained to you something. But I must confess, I mean, I couldn't get all of them in that kind of manner. I mean, that is it. That's as ordinary as it can be. Okay. And
so, secondary school, which one?
I went to Kiabonyoro Secondary School.
Kia?
Kiabonyoro. That is North Mogrango. Then after that, I went to Kisi High School for A level. Some of my classmates, I think, are people who are known publicly from that place. Or who are in public spaces one way or the other. And then from there I went to Kenyatta University.
So coming to Kenyatta, was the first time coming to Nairobi?
The trip to Kenyatta University was my very first time to come to Nairobi, you know. So that's why I get amused when people say, oh, I came from America. I came to Nairobi first to go to Kenyatta University. So I'm as rural as everybody else is and so on. And since that time, so hung out at, well, I didn't hang out. I studied at Kenyatta University. And after graduation, I was employed by TSC to teach as a teacher. I think I thought, I can't quite remember, I think I thought for a very short time, probably about less than a year. You know, when we graduated, by the way, there was no problem of employment as it is these days. By the time you finished your last exams, you had your letter of appointment from TSC. You were already placed in a school. And then, those days, because of the expansion of the universities, due to the need for staff development, the universities opened up a very rapid graduate training program. So most top students at undergraduate level were also absorbed very easily for graduate training almost immediately. So because the government that time was very organized and was supporting the state universities to prepare for that expansion through the staff development program. In other words, people have got to go do their masters and then become lecturers in the process. So I was admitted for masters to two universities. I was admitted for masters both at Kenyatta University and at the University of Nairobi. What used to happen those days is that universities used to share grades across the board. Like the graduating class at KU, University of Nairobi would request grades from the graduating class because there were scholarships, but there are not that many, but they would, share grades across the board. And then, so that's how I got admitted at both University of Nairobi and KU for graduate program. I opted to go to Nairobi. Because,
so I want to understand, what do you mean by share grades? Like,
I mean, they would not ask for information about a student. They would say, give us your top student list, or give us your leading student list and so on. Because they're also preparing a graduate program. In fact, universities like KU at that time were starting their graduate program around that time. So they would ask for, send us your top and graduating class list or something like that. So that, and you could also apply. I mean, if you applied, then they could very easily obtain. You didn't have to wait until the actual graduation ceremony and so on. In fact, I started graduate class at the University of Nairobi before the ceremony, the graduation ceremony at KU at that time. I guess you see it's a difference of the academic years, number one, and then secondly, as I said, I was determined at that time to go to graduate school. What I really used to want to do is that I wanted to be a professor. That's what I was looking forward to to doing. You know, I used to admire, you know, teaching at the university and so on. And
So
I was
you,
lucky.
You pursued education because you wanted to be a teacher? Because I'm assuming those days, wasn't it easier to get in quotes other courses? Because right now, education is not looked at as a lucrative degree or a lucrative career.
Okay, first of all, I must be honest and say this. You know, when we completed Form 6, you know, I don't know about my contemporaries and other people. You see, going to university alone was so prestigious. In fact, sometimes I think you filled those forms so absent-mindedly. You know, sometimes you didn't know what you're actually filling your forms to be. Because, you see, there are only two universities, the University of Nairobi and Kenyatta University.
Okay.
When you were admitted to university, your names were printed in the newspaper. You know, in fact, I think my late father to this day, somewhere, if I checked his records in his library somewhere, there must be a copy of the newspaper when we were admitted to university. I mean, can you imagine how prestigious it would be, you know, to have your son's name, you know, in the newspaper, or your child's name for that matter, in the newspaper. So, it was prestigious enough. You go to, you know, to be admitted to university, and then, you know, those are the days of boom. You know, you get boom. A university student was very famous person. We want many in that village, first of all. So you wallowed in your own fame of some kind, and then so on. So what I cared most, first of all, at that particular time is I went to university. You know, and went to university on first attempt. You know, there's a story that people don't know. When I tell these people, say, you know, I'm being arrogant. You know, many people, watch these days, by the way, many people who went to university after so many attempts. Because of the challenges of high school education and high school exams, universities, especially state universities, introduced systems where you would be admitted after you have done 3 exams. And this is what used to happen, my friend. You attempt exam year 1, you get 1 principal and 2 subsidiaries. Then you go back and do it year 2 and get 1 principal. Yani unaweka kama savings account. Then unangoja hiyo na third year, then you do it. Most of these guys, you have to keep, some of them ended up in Makerere and Dar es Salaam and so on. Ni wale kuzijaza, unajaza mwaka huu, unajaza mwaka huu. But you see, during our time, it was prestigious. To just strike it, 3 principals, first attempt, and then you are admitted. And you know, we were the National Youth Service generation. You know, President Moi had introduced the NYS that time. Mwandawiro Muganga, and so on, Mind and Digirigi. These were the guys who were ahead of us, who went to NYS before us. So for us, then, you know, you're naming the papers, then you proceed to NYS in Gigiri. You do paramilitary training for 3 months. I did that business. And by the way, it was a very negative stigma. In the university, if you did not go through NYS during our time, you never said it loudly. You never said it loudly because people thought there's something wrong with you. So those who did not go to NYS did not confess openly that they did not go to NYS because they were seen as weaklings or malingaras or something.
This was around which year?
85, 86.
This was before Nyayo Bus, because I remember NYS, those are the guys who worked on Nyayo Bus.
Nyayo Bus was around that time also.
So did you guys work on Nyayo Bus?
No. No. This was, you know, the Nyayo Bus fellows are the ones who are selected for paramilitary training at NYS. Ours was pre-university training. You know, NYS. That is the same group as President William Ruto. We were all the contemporaries. You know, President Ruto, myself. We are all more or less, you know, the same group of people, same intake.
So what
category
was this pre-university training about for NYS?
It was a paramilitary training. I mean, other than the military fatigue and a bunch of skills, frankly, I think it's a good thing, much as people try to frown about it. If I had a way personally, I would, and budget resources allowed, I would stress and allow it to happen in one form or the other. Because you see, It essentially it was preparing people to to acquire skills for life. You know, you go to Nyandarua, there was an ADC farm, kulima viazi huko, and so on. The discipline of paramilitary training, we used to wake up at 2 in the morning to go for 5 PX. You know, if you have messed up during parade, the punishment is for you to run up the hill, unarenga kioko, as it is. And then, of course, all those things about handling. Although they're using spades to train us, that's essentially how people are trained to use firearms. And then the discipline. There was a bit of training about the law in Kenya, what you need to know about citizenship, you know, and so on and so forth. But the discipline to get things done, and then the discipline to work with your hands. Because, you know, we used to be, and honestly, that is what I liked most about the training. I mean, in hindsight now, you know, because that time you would frown about it and say, what the heck is this? What am I going through? And so on. I mean, is it a punishment to pass exams and stuff like that? But, you know, in hindsight, I think it's a good thing. Because you see, you know, Muaf, to polish your shoe is a job.
Yeah.
It's not as simple as people think it is. We're there to polish, and you know, would be inspected every morning. You are inspected on how you manage your uniform, how you polish. Yani, we used to be told, ngarisha kiatu mpaka iwe kio, nataka nione kama zi kio, and then you know the people are supervising you. They come and instead of telling you it's not good, they step on it and tell this is useless work and so on. But you see, I mean, at that time you would be a bit, frustrated and so on and so forth. But you see, 3 things happened in that program, which I thought, in my view, even in hindsight, were very good. One, it created or gave you an opportunity to build very strong collegial skills. Because you are meeting at the National Youth Service for the first time. You are in this company. You have met people who have come from everywhere. You know, Friends School, Kamsinga, Shimolatewa, wherever, you know, you are meeting
Where
there.
was it?
Gigiri.
Gigiri. Okay. So it was just one for the whole country?
It was one for the whole country. I mean, the boys went to Gigiri. The girls also went to Naivasha. And then we were joined during the preparations for the pass-out parade. So you see, you meet some of the friendships that we met. I met myself. Some of the people I met at the NYS. Later on, you know, we met at the university, and then they became friends, and we made lifelong friendships. Because you see, you're always running together, you're exercising together, you're going up the hill together, and so on. And when you are tired, dog tired in the evening, you tell stories together before you sleep and so on. So you build a certain sense of community and so on. 2, I honestly think just before university, the team building that happened there was very, very good. Because every task is done according to your company or your platoon and so on and so forth. So you know, you learn how to do things together. You know, by the way, I need to say this so that you understand why I think it was an interesting course. We didn't have people to clean our dormitories and our company.
Yes.
We didn't have people to cook for us or even clean the toilets. You are all, you are all arranged on, you take turns to clean the toilets, turns to cook, clean your barrack, and so on. All manual work is done by the recruits.
Okay.
And it was very nice. I mean, one, it equalizes all of you. There was nobody who's saying, I'm coming from upper class, wherever, you know, I was in Kisi High School, you were in Sameta, wherever, I was in Alliance, you were in Kanyakine, nothing. You are all the same at that particular time, which is very good. So I said team building skills enable you to build, collegial, working environment. And then knowledge, the sheer knowledge. Griffin, the late Geoffrey Griffin, was our director, who was then the director of Starehe Boys Center. I remember the first statement he made when he came to NYS, when we were there, as though it happened yesterday. We had been there for about 7 days. You know, you can imagine now, you passed your Form 6 exam. When mtu mkubwa umeandikwa kwa gazeti unaenda university bwana. And then now, sasa, unafika pale, the first thing that happens is your hair is cleaned. They're shaved clean completely. That must be kurutu. So, kuwa kurutu, umetolewa nywele, kila kitu. Umevaa uniform ya green, unachoma unachua hapo sawa. Then Griffin arrives 7 days later. Then when he stands up, he looks around, he looks at us, you know. Then he makes this statement, says, "This is a place for men." In other words, you can't survive here if you are not willing to tough it out,
Yes.
you know, as it is. So it was a good thing, and I think, but I guess, you know, the budget resources for maintaining it.
Was there like corporal punishment there? Because when you talked about cleaning your classes, cleaning your dorms, because I went to Starehe, so I knew that that's what we used to do. So I think he just took the model from the high school and put it on NYS, because we knew he was the one who'd started NYS. So, but we never had corporal punishment. So did you guys also have that? Because I know
There was no corporal punishment in NYS. What was there was prison term. You know, when you are completely off, you know, you are thrown in for a night or two. There was a prison within the campus. So, you know, if you are generally notorious, then you are just or you did not. You know, there are some of those. Okay, you would be punished. The punishment was press-ups, in most cases.
Drill.
Or drill apple. Ama, you know, you are banned from some activity. All you are told to, like now, when you made a mistake, if you marched badly and so on, your platoon, whatever, was told to stay behind, and then you just march for the next 1 hour, just like that. You know, just to punish you. All, you know, now when you were joined with the girls from Naivasha, you know, they are, you know, at that age.
Yeah.
You know, the urge to speak to a girl who was your over the fence sweetheart in Kereli girls, you know, like now as we were in Kisi school, the girls in Kereli were you know, institutional sweethearts. So, you know, if you were, you know, and then you have not seen this girl for a long time, you know, but if you are not disciplined in the manner in which Kadnotunga School boys also adopted the girls in Nyahururu. So anyway, and I know this happened everywhere. It's not just us. I mean, at that age, you know what happens during that age.
Yes.
You know, to receive a letter from a girl is supposed to, can almost make your blood flow the opposite direction. It's still silly things like those.
Yes.
Anyway, so if you can't now manage that urge of wanting to speak to a girl and so on, and you are violating the code of conduct, then you are thrown in the cell or something like that. Or if you found, because there's some boys who are very daring, you know, they will find a way of cutting through the wires or stealing through and some girls too, through the wires to go to the girls' side. So if you are caught there, you are thrown in for a night or something like that. I didn't attempt any of those. I didn't.
Yeah. And was there this thing called working party? Because when you talk about drill, we had drill where you do press ups, do what. But was there the working party where other people who were on duty would be told, don't clean, these guys are going to clean as part of punishment?
Yes. There was that. Yeah, there was working party. You know, like now, cooking and cleaning toilets. If you messed up, for example, in parade, you would now go and replace the guys who are on schedule to go and do that. So, you know, I mean, it was okay. I want to say the first few days, like 1 or 2 weeks, you get very irritated. You know, you ask yourself a question. I mean, surely, is it a crime to pass to go to university? Why must I go through this? But after about the 3 or 4 weeks, you enjoy it. You learn to hang out with your colleagues because, you know, you discover some of your friends. Then you form a friendship, you know, and so on. And we spend time making fun of the trainers.
Yes.
And so on, Kofa and Osore and so on. I remember them all. Some of those guys who were there. And so we make fun of them. And we have also acquire nicknames, you know, and so on. I used to ask questions, a lot of questions. In fact, the commandant of our barrack, I've forgotten his name, Musa or somebody. Ended up nicknaming me Mukizi mwenye siasakari, you know, because he knew after I was going to ask a question. You know, and whatever happened, I always, you know, wanted to ask a question and find out what's happening and so on. But it was fun, you know. After about 2 or 3 weeks, you get used to the training. In any case, by the way, you face your fate. You are not leaving tomorrow.
Yeah.
This damn thing is here for the next 3 months. So you rather just enjoy it and carry on with life. Nobody's going to come from home to see you. Anybody from your home will come and see you at the pass out parade 3 months from now. So that is it. So I wrote only one letter when I was there to my father, complaining about the training and what have you. And he wrote me a 1-paragraph response. He said, as far as I know, you are not the only one who's there. So enjoy like the others are enjoying. Carry on with your life. So, and I didn't write any letter back to him because I thought he didn't understand what I was going through, and that's life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then afterwards you go to, so how long would it take between NYS and KU? Or you just finish and it's direct to KU?
Actually, the paramilitary training would take 3 months. And depending on your intake, you would, like after about approximately about a month,
Okay.
also you would go. Some people, like in some courses at the University of Nairobi, left NYS on Friday, and they reported maybe a week later or something like that. I can't quite remember, but the time wasn't that significant.
Yes.
It's like about a month or so. And you are now in school. You carry on with your life.
Okay. So how was KU during those days? Especially for someone coming from the village.
Fantastic, actually. I enjoyed every bit of my stay in college. You see, okay, over a period of time, and people ask me this question all the time, and this is my answer. When I left government, people were asking me, how is it now to be out of government now that you're in? I say, I don't see the difference. I tell people it's because I've always lived like that. I mean, what is happening at a particular point in time doesn't mean anything. I mean, it doesn't change me, I don't change my life or tests or what have you because of what I'm doing. So I continue to I try to have as much fun as I can do, I can, afford to have, as long as I'm responsible and disciplined even in that fun. Because you see, KU was fine. I mean, imagine you're all together, age mates, your contemporaries and so on and so forth. And then that's also the beauty of learning at the time when you are very, very young, I need to pause to say that one of the things why, and this is one of the reasons why, I hope you don't mind me saying this, I kept telling a lot of people why I was very, very angry and pained when a terrorist attacked Garissa University. It's because I could imagine as a university student, I mean, how on earth, because when someone is 20 years old, 21, I mean, that is, life is breeze.
Yes.
You are getting boom at the University of Nairobi, everything is here. Then you see we've come from a place where we used to stay in boys' dormitory. Here now, girls can visit you. And actually, even sleep over, if you talk to them nicely. Or you can go to the girls' hostel in Rwenzori or one of those, girls' hostels.
You're in which hostel? You?
I stayed in Longonot.
Longonot. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
And then you all go to, Ngong. The girls' hostel was Ngong, the famous one, Ngong Hills. And then you could visit the girls there. If you have come from a boys' school like I did, from Kiss High School, Mr. Joseph Kinywa, my wonderful headmaster, a very strict, good man, even to when we have debate club meetings, many of my contemporaries in high school belong to debate club just because they will give them an opportunity to meet the girls. Because if you're a member of debating club, is when you will meet the debating club of Kereri girls or the debating club of Nyaburu or something like that. Now, you come from this environment where you come across, you interact with girls when you have gone to debating club meetings. Then you now come to the university. It depends on your discipline and your morality. Of course, some of my colleagues, and as you all know yourself, some of them can't deal with that level of freedom. Wanapotea hapo na mambo mengine inapotea huko. I didn't fall for those things, I must confess. But, that freedom, your life has changed suddenly. That's why you have the world with you. You can stay late.
But that's also the period of heartbreaks. So is there someone that stands out from those days?
No,
Anaitangwa msichana wa character development.
no,
Kuna
no.
ule
I have to
unafikia na kupenda afu
no,
ukapata
no.
kuna mtu amekuja na baiskeli akakuacha hapo.
No. I didn't have those types of things. I was very keen about about how I lived, that I lived responsibly. By the way, another day I took my staff with me, the two of my staffers. I have not forgiven them for that, but then the young people, so I can forgive them. I took them to my class reunion the other day.
Yeah.
And because some of my classmates, I don't want to mention their names here, because we were all naughty and so on. Some of my classmates were insisting, you must sit here with me, you must sit here with me, and so on and so forth. So some of my staffers were telling me, please tell us the truth. This was your high school. I told them, no, that's not the case. I didn't have those types of things. I mean, I meet some of my classmates this day, the girls and the boys equally, and if there is anything, I don't know whether this society will ever recover that, because I think for me that is the greatest thing about a society. Happiness in youth, enjoying youth and being happy when people are young and so on. It's something we should, and I'm going to give you two examples. I hope you don't mind in quick succession.
Yeah.
In 2020, I think that's 2020, 2021, when President Kenyatta succeeded to negotiate that we have the World Survival Rally here, the SUNY in Kenya. I was a CS Interior, and we went to Naivasha. You couldn't find even an open space in Naivasha to pitch a tent. All our young people were out there in Naivasha. For 2 days, I didn't sleep a wink, because you see, we were all, including the Inspector General Police, all of us security sector people, we were nervous because we have such huge numbers of young people in Naivasha.
Yes.
And if a terrorist wanted to sort us out, if they turned up there and blew up one of those places, we were going to lose a lot of our young people. So we were so nervous about what was happening at that time. But still, even as we were flying that place, we kept saying, and I kept telling a lot of people, I was even telling President Kenyatta that, what is shocking about this? The level of happiness,
Yes.
the excitement you see in these young people. They are just drinking, howling the whole night, happy.
Yes.
When you see a society with such happy young people, I mean, that is the hallmark of a society that is vibrating. That's the vibrance that you need. The second example is this. I went to South Africa in 1996. But I got a small fellowship as part of my PhD program to work with some colleagues at University of South Africa, UNISA in Pretoria. But while I was there, because I was there, I was interested in, of course, I met South African friends. I would visit, I went to Stellenbosch, to these other places. What was extremely exciting is around that time, South Africa was not what it is right now. It was just like a year or 2 years after, independence. These African kids now going into these universities and so on. I mean, you would sit outside the library at Stellenbosch or outside the library at the waterfront near, at UCT. And you see how these, boisterous, energetic young people are coming out of classes, pumping high five on each other, shaking each other, hugging each other tightly, and so on. I say, this is now the vibrance of our society. So sometimes, actually, as a leader, when I pass around here, and I see some of the challenges that we face in this society, and then one greatest indicator of how we are not doing well is just go and even stop your car at the crossing point near the University of Nairobi and see those kids going in and coming out and so on. Read their faces, as people move around. Go outside, sit the post office here, sit square near Technical University. Just pause for a moment as an observer. And then, by the way, let me tell you, I've done this all my life. Everywhere I go, I like observing people. You tell a lot about our society when you observe them and so on. So to go back to the story of KU and our college days, it was that vibrance. You're happy. And to this day, I have my class reunion. We meet so often, Many of us are doing their own things. We've gone all manner of places. But when we meet, we joke with each other the way we used to do at that time. In fact, one time, I was with my wife at Yaya Center, and I introduced her to a former classmate of mine. I said, I was about to mention her name anyway, I shouldn't. Said, please meet my wife. Then she screamed in the corridors, "Huh, Fred, you actually married?" I said, I told her, "What do you mean?" Then we were joking, and she explained to my wife that, he joked too much. Nobody even believed that he would get to a point where he would get around to marry anybody. But you see, that is how it is. I mean, so I remember those years, especially those college days, with that kind of,
So
happiness.
by joke, you mean you're a player?
No.
Because that's the only time we ask each other, like, "Hey, purely Marika." It's because when someone was a player.
No.
When one was not enough.
No. I didn't have you. I can invite you to 25 or 30 of my classmates, and you can check that. I wasn't that type of person. And you can't, when you're in public life such as I am, you can't even hide that. Anyway, if you were that type of person.
Yeah. So why didn't they think you'd be married? Like, because apart from being a player,
No, we were.
you're
You see,
focused.
what happened is this: when I went to, it's when I was in college. You're having college at you're 18 years old or 19. Honestly speaking, it's just that I see people pushing kids these days. At 18 or 19 years old. I mean, what can you do with marriage? To be honest with you. And then nobody at that time thought about the serious stuff of now I have now come here, met this girl I'm going to propose to. I mean, that is not in your mind at that particular point in time, and so on. So I mean, it's a happy-go-lucky. You enjoy your life. You are.
Okay.
You keep your friendships. And so on and so forth. So as I said, by the way, even when I was Minister for Education, I used to go to schools. And I meet some of my classmates who are teaching, and sometimes I wouldn't be able to hold myself, because I would still remember the school days, and either yell somebody's nickname with the way we used to talk to each other at that time, and and find myself occasionally. Then the officers in the ministry tell me, "Oh, particularly, by the way, you are now the minister. You need to be." But do I care, honestly? I mean, you are the same person, whether you're a minister or not. Yeah.
So you finish KU. You're saying like by the time you're finishing.
Then I went to University of Nairobi. Yes, that is it.
So TSC, what were you doing?
I mean, I was teaching, and I was an English teacher, and you are paid.
English teacher at a school?
I was actually posted to Kipsigis Girls, although I didn't report there. What happened is that, during my time, English teachers were very, very scarce. I was posted there. Then again, I was reposted to another school in Nyamira because of, school principals used to jostle for mathematics, English teachers, and that kind of thing. Even there, I didn't even teach for more than 2 terms. I taught for about a term. Then I got my letter for admission to graduate school.
Masters?
Yeah, masters.
That's University of Nairobi?
University of Nairobi.
Okay.
I went to University of Nairobi. Interesting enough, many people, I may be wrong in what I'm saying, but let me say it anyway. At that particular time, the fun and life was such that people didn't bother about graduate school. It was a guy, you have gone through, you are earning money to go back to school again, nothing doing. We were 6 students in my graduate class.
Oh.
Yeah, we were 6. And, throughout the time, so, my professors would come and teach. We were just 6 students, masters.
That's undergraduate or masters?
Masters.
Okay.
6 students. So, but anyway, this was as I said, the beginning phase of graduate training at universities because of preparation for staff development.
Okay.
Then, so I completed the program at that time. And you see, I don't know what the situation is these days, but I think it's the same. When you complete your master's degree, you submit your dissertation, you wait for examination, then you graduate. Okay. But by that time, I had already been employed as a tutorial fellow at Egerton University.
Okay. So at what point does Egerton start? Because I remember you said when you were going to university, it was only 2 universities at that point. It was KU.
No, by that time, in the course of that, Egerton University started. Okay. Egerton, Moi, have started two new universities started thereafter. In fact, Egerton and Moi started soon after. So we were some of the students who were teaching at Egerton University, I think, were the very first students to start the degree programs there.
Okay.
So the late Professor Chris Msando was the head of the Department of Literature, and Professor Chacha, who had been our professor at KU, was now the dean of the Faculty of Arts at Egerton, and it was the Faculty of Arts was opening up. So we were hired, a bunch of us, not me alone. There's some other guys who were hired from KU. In fact, my friend, I don't know whether you'll be happy if I say this, but let me say anyway, since it's also in public life. My friend, Mwenda Ntarangwi, the current vice chancellor at USIU, Mwenda Ntarangwi and myself and a number of others who were hired. Some of our colleagues at Namule are now teaching in the US and so on. We were some of the pioneers at the Faculty of Arts at Egerton. So I taught there for 2 years as a tutorial fellow. Then, again, in that line of growth, because of staff development program, again, universities were putting resources in collaboration with other universities outside the country to train lecturers more, university professors more. So I was admitted to the PhD program at the University of Nairobi. So the rest now from there is history. I completed my doctoral studies and then continued to teach at the University of Nairobi for 8 years.
Oh, 8 years, huh? Okay.
Yeah. And I left the University of Nairobi. I went to work with the State University of New York.
Oh, okay. How did that opportunity come up?
Before I went to the State University of New York, I'd veered off into civil society work because I'd begun working on postdoctoral work on media and politics, and shown interest in research in media and politics. And through that, I met several people in the governance space. I did a stint briefly with the IED, the Institute for Education in Democracy. And then the State University of New York Center for International Development was, it was essentially a USAID and DFID program for here. Okay. And as you know, the SUNY CID is a contractor. It's like the Institute of Development Studies at the University of Nairobi. The US government prefers to use most of the institutions to do international development work because these funds are voted for by Congress. They go formally through USAID and so on. So SUNY CID was a contractor here who had a program in legislative strengthening. So I was hired first as the deputy director for the program. Then later on I became the country director and worked there for a while. Then when I left, I went to work, as the East and Southern Africa representative. That's what they call director. The position was designated as representative for East and Southern Africa. So that's where I was working when I was hired to Cabinet.
Okay. So so when you talk about this State University of New York or SUNY, so what are you doing there specifically? Are you teaching?
No. As I said, SUNY CID is a contractor. If you know how the Institute of Development Studies at the University of Nairobi works, the bulk of the work it does is research, contract research. I mean, institutions need some work done or they implement programs. It's like, research dimensions of Johns Hopkins University. There are programs here in Nairobi, whether it's on malaria or something, the US government through USAID would put money, and then they would contract an arm of a university in the US, for example, as we in the example of Johns Hopkins. Oh, okay. Or in the days of the ARVs and HIV/AIDS studies, universities like Liverpool and so on would hire the research and contracting bits will be involved in collecting data and and implementing certain programs and so on. That's what the SUNY CID is. We used to call it CID because Center for International Development had big partnerships. I mean, at one point in Africa, they were implementing programs with University of Cape Town, with University of Cairo, and I worked partly with some colleagues from the Center for Social Science Research at the University of Cape Town, and that kind of stuff.
Okay. So how did you get the call and who called? Is it Uhuru that calls? Are you in New York at this point? Like, how do you end up in, or had you come to Kenya for holiday? How does that work?
For holiday.
I'm just asking. Like, how do you end up in government?
How I ended up in government. President Kenyatta called me. I was in, I remember vividly this day, I was in Bulawayo in Zimbabwe, working for SUNY. Just at that time, SUNY had been contracted to work with UNDP and other multilateral organizations to try and either write a case or an advisory for resumption. You know, Zimbabwe had gotten out of the IMF program because of the challenges they had and so on. So I was out there at that time, teaming up with colleagues of mine to do two things. Number one, to prepare some sort of advisory on whether it was time to resume support. And secondly, there's a regional legislative body in Southern Africa called SADC, the SADC Parliamentary Forum.
Yes.
The SADC Parliamentary Forum was also now beginning to recalibrate its institutions and become much more effective. There was also a lean contract at that time from SUNY to try and support SADC at that time, the SADC PF, to build some of its institutions and enhance its effectiveness. So the dual purposes for that are the ones that took me to Bulawayo. I was one of the consultants or the team leaders for that, because in any case I was in charge of the East and Southern Africa program for SUNY. So I was in Bulawayo when he called me. He didn't tell me he was appointing me to cabinet. He asked me to come to Nairobi.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he asked me, where are you? I said, blah, blah. Okay, fair enough. He said, can you come?
Had you ever talked to him before? Or is it the first time?
Yeah, no. I talked to him. I mean, we always talked. I mean, I knew him all along, because when SUNY was implementing its program here, its parliamentary program here, Ur was the chairman of the Public Accounts Committee as leader of the opposition. So I interacted with him at that time. And even when the office of the Prime Minister was created, by the way, after the 2007 general elections, the bilaterals that wanted to support the office of the Prime Minister, then the late Prime Minister Raila Odinga, didn't have a way of putting money directly to support, because in Donaval it's called a pipeline. There wasn't a direct pipeline to put resources. So some of those bilaterals decided to use our program to put money to support the office of the Prime Minister at that time. So, and in that time, I was then working directly with him, with the Prime Minister Raila Odinga, Deputy Prime Minister Uhuru Kenyatta, and Deputy Prime Minister Musalia Mudavadi, but more with Uhuru and Raila at that time. So we had met in those circumstances, and we knew each other at that point. So anyway,
Get a call.
he calls me. It was mid-morning. Mid-morning, towards the end of the day anyway. I called my wife to get me a ticket, because I think it was a holiday in Kenya. I can't remember what was happening. I couldn't trace my staff in the office at that time. So anyway, I called my wife, who got me a ticket, a one-way ticket. I drove by road, because I asked Uhuru, can I see you the day after tomorrow? He said, no, tomorrow. So I looked for a ticket and drove to Harare, flew on KQ that leaves Harare at 1 a.m.
Oh, okay.
Got to Nairobi.
How far is Bulawayo to Harare?
It's about 3 hours drive or so, but the road is fantastic. I mean, it's magical.
Oh,
I don't know
so
if the infrastructure
all this time
is
you're
now.
thinking, what are you thinking? Like, he's called me for what? Do you think it's a job to you, or why are you coming?
Well, you see, he had been telling me when we were talking that if you win the election, he will ask me to do something. But usually what I thought myself is that I was going to do something in the area of research, because I'd also been very strongly telling him that should he become president, he should create something like the CRO, the Congressional Research, the White House Research Facility, or something like the Congressional Research Office or the Congressional Budget Office, CBO, where you assemble a group of experts who advise, the presidency on what needs to be done. Later on, actually, President Kenyatta did do that, because he created the Presidential Delivery Unit, the BDU, which was really phenomenal in terms of supporting the the office of the president in terms of delivery. And later on, honestly speaking, I mean, I thank God as God would have it. Later on, when I went to work for the World Bank, that became very valuable to me because when I was moved to the Caribbean region, I found myself having very many discussions with several governments in the Caribbean, advising them that it would be good to create a delivery unit, to support prime ministers and so on. Because politics is such that you can actually go through a year without doing things you can touch and things you can see. If there are no people who are seated there on a day-to-day basis, tracking the policy promises and things that the president or the prime minister is making, and then ensuring that they remove the bottlenecks wherever they are in the bureaucracy in government to ensure that results are achieved. So I used to have these kind of discussions with Uhuru a lot because he was very interested in, and he used to ask questions even before he became president on how in fact, the things that finally President Kenyatta did when he was in government, like centralizing government services through Huduma Center and so on, are things which he himself had been discussing. Because you see, as a result of collecting views from the public, you go there queue to renew your ID, you go to queue in another place and so on. How do you collate and coalesce these offices and these facilities so that you are able to get services in one place, a one-stop shop for service delivery for government to reduce the amount of time, and also opportunities for rent-seeking and frustrating wananchi. So these are conversations that used to happen at that time. I was particularly eloquent and very strong on this issue of the office of the president will deliver if it has a unit. And the presidential governments are modeled alongside the American government. And many of them, not all of them, many of them. And yet you see what makes those offices effective is that the president will have the politicians and these other people, yes, but he will have teams of very solid people whose 24/7 operation is to track virtually everything. I mean, they read statistics on security, they read, they receive data on security, they insist on these things being done and so on and so forth. So anyway, I thought myself when I was coming, that's what he was coming to tell me to do.
Okay. So the plane leaves at 1. What time are you in Nairobi?
I can't even remember, but I arrived here in the morning because, I've never kept those records of those details. I know I arrived here in the morning, continued with my life here. We met with the president. He told me to give
Same day?
No, I think I met the same day in the evening. I met him in the afternoon. Then he told me, we are forming government. I'm thinking of giving you something to do. Are you available? I said, yes, I'm available. The rest of the conversation, I don't think is privileged conversation. I cannot produce to the public. Then, long story short, finally we were appointed to cabinet. So, what was shocking is that the day we were appointed, we were called to State House for a meeting, which was actually about a day or two since I arrived from Harare.
Yes.
And that's when I met for the first time. I met Amina Mohammed, James Masharia, and Henry Rotich. We were all in one room. We had all been called there to State House. Then the president, you see, you leave your phone at the entrance there.
Yes.
Then the president says he's appointing us to cabinet. Nobody in my family knew anything. I had to go and borrow a phone to call my wife. Because he said, this is what has happened, and I don't know exactly. But please, this is shocking to everybody. Anyway, fine. Long story short, president names the cabinet. He starts calling names. And I'm the first one he calls out.
Yes.
And he announces the ministry there at the microphone.
Oh, you didn't know which ministry?
No, he didn't. I wasn't told. He just announces there. When he's standing there with the deputy president, they say, Fred Matiang'i is going to be a cabinet secretary for ICT. Okay.
By this time, how much knowledge of ICT do you know?
General. Yani, ile ya survive. What do you know? What do you know? You don't, because I've not immersed myself,
Do you remember around which month this is? This is April? Because the elections were in March, eh?
I think, no, the elections were in December.
No, 2013. 2013, the elections
If
were
it
in
is
March.
March, then it's around May, I think.
Okay.
So anyway, that is that. And then kazi tunaanza kazi hapo, we go to parliament, where the humdrum begins, you know, vetted. Then now, tunaanza kazi.
Vetting, kuna kitu yote ili come up? Vile...
Oh, nothing of any significance, actually. The only, I was waiting to, there was nothing of any significance. What the people spent time on during the vetting was asking me how I bought my land in Karen, because somebody was saying
Yes.
that I had taken their land in Karen and so on. But, you know, it was neither here nor there. They couldn't prove it. In any case, you see, it's a property my family and I had bought through an auction from a bank, and the paperwork was there, and you know, and everything was there. You know, somebody had tried to blackmail me some 3 or 4 days before. Not the way people do in this world. Oh, go and say, hey, if you don't say this, I'll say. I said, let's meet there at the vetting. Bring your documents.
He's telling you if you don't say what?
You know, oh, you know, this land, we are going to raise the issue. You might not become a minister. I said, we'll meet there. Take the documents, we'll meet there. Because I've never lived that way in my life. And blackmail doesn't work. Yeah.
So that's interesting. So the land, you bought it how many years before this whole vetting?
This was almost 10 years earlier.
Okay.
Yeah, almost 10 years earlier. I see these things all the time. It's the nature of this society. You know, and then it's unfortunate, actually, because you see in this country, morality is a problem, honestly, here. People are very dishonest, and sometimes people try to, especially people in public life, really suffer a lot. I don't know whether ordinary people know half the challenges people in public life go through, you know, because, you know, people come up with all manner of claims and stuff like that. A friend of mine who was in public life, the wife was driving, here in Karen, was driving to work one morning, and they scratched a motorcycle guy, you know. First of all, the motorcycle guy went away, and they said, madam, it's okay, it's a scratch. We left. Until somebody told him that that car is the wife of so-and-so. In the evening, they arrived at their gate. 50 of them. Oh, uliumiza mtu wetu asubuhi, ukatoroka, you know. You know how these societies, people in public life have problems, but you know. It's just yesterday I was saying, this culture of money and the public life in Kenya, I don't know how it's ever going to be sorted out. We created a big problem. Yes. Everywhere you go, if you're in public life like I am, everywhere you go, everywhere, if you park your car to get out the supermarket, when you come out, there are guys around your car. Mkuu sasa, unatuacha namna gani? One time, the sixth. One time, you know. They want you to give them money. I mean, so you ask yourself, I mean, when is it going to end? And how is it going to end? So it's that same culture where, you know, people believe in blackmailing others and so on and so forth. But anyway, fortunately, that is that. So, long story short, 10 years in cabinet, ICT.
Okay. With the ICT, because there's something you keep mentioning, so I have to come back to it. How long does it take before Westgate happens? Because I know Westgate happened in 2013. So you're part of the cabinet?
Actually, Westgate happened like 3 months after we have been appointed to cabinet.
Okay.
About 3 months. We are hammered in Westgate. I remember vividly, I was attending an ITU meeting in Washington. We were just about to sign the comeback. And you know, that time we were working very actively on digital migration.
So you're not in the country?
I'm not in the country. Then the president calls in the middle of the night and says, we've been attacked and I need the entire cabinet in Nairobi. Okay. So we all start moving to Nairobi. So I check out of the hotel at night. I called the then acting ambassador of Kenya in the US. You know, we start looking for a ticket, get a plane that can get me out of Washington to London. You know, then we end up here and find we have been hammered by terrorists in Westgate and so on. We went through a tough time in government. We went through a tough time.
Yeah. Because I remember, like, I don't know, I think I was doing some sort of research, and told me there were 3 terrorist attacks in those 10 years.
Yes.
Garissa
One
happened
was that was the first one. Then Garissa followed.
Garissa happened the same year?
No, Garissa happened about 2 years later.
Okay. Then Dusit.
Then Dusit. Dusit happened when I was CS Interior in 2018.
And like, what happens like in, if you had to give us some general knowledge, what happens like in the first meeting where now the cabinet is there? What's the reaction? Because a terrorist attack is just...
Well, you see, I can't talk much about the Westgate and the Garissa because, I was second level participant. Second level participant is co-actors are the security sector people. But I can talk about Dusit because Dusit, I was the Minister for Interior. When it happened, I was the one in office, so I was first level actor at that particular time. The first thing is we go into a control room, all of us, immediately when it becomes apparent that we have been attacked. But you see, by the time Dusit happened, we had spent a lot of money and resources as government. And a hell lot of reforms had happened in the security sector. In fact, we had, it was, the security sector was almost like a diametric opposite of what it was when we were attacked in Westgate. By this time, the training, reorganization, planning, disaster response, we were all, completely up to scratch. And we were determined, by the time we learned that an attack had happened in Dusit, we were determined that before the daybreak, the following day, we have neutralized the enemy, cleared up the place, and restored normalcy. And it happened, at that particular time, because a lot of training had happened at that time. And, better synergization and better coordination was happening at that time. Because we had spent a lot of time simulating because some of the challenges, security challenges we had, when we came to government was, to be honest with you, the security sector was fairly dysfunctional. I mean, where agencies don't talk to each other, and so on. And you cannot run silos in the security sector. I mean, intelligence must be shared within a very symmetrical way. There must be a very solid level of trust between the agencies. And every opportunity when there's a crisis must be an opportunity to be ready. Because nothing substitutes planning and nothing substitutes rehearsal and then preparation to counter an enemy, because there will be enemies all the time. And so by the time Dusit was happening, we were completely prepared, and within we had taken all the decisions we needed to take within a very short time.
Okay. Yeah. Then, so the ICT Ministry, one of the things that happened, of course, was the analog to digital. And I remember the media stations were not happy with you. They felt like you bulldozed. You did not give them enough time. So what do you feel about that? And why was it necessary? If you could start with that, like, why was this analog to digital very necessary?
If we had not migrated, by the way, you wouldn't be running a podcast today. Let's begin from there. And second, so that's a fact. Wow. Nikukumbusha tu. I know you know. Unaelewa. Hata wewe mwenyewe. Unajua President Kibaki used to say, hata wewe unajua unataka waambiwe. Unajua hata wewe. You will not be running a broadcast today.
Okay.
If we are not migrated. You see, what used to happen is that under analog broadcasting, our spectrum was hoarded by 3 broadcasters. And we needed to reorganize and get out of that band so that we can liberalize the airwaves and ensure that we avail a broadband spectrum liberally to Kenyans and so on. I mean, I have lost count. In fact, even if I stopped here today, let me tell you the truth. Even if I didn't do anything else in my life, and even if I retired from public life today and went away completely, I thank God and I feel completely achieved because of that digital migration. I've lost count of the number of businesses. 15% of Kenyan youth are self-employed, and many of them through, digital business and so on.
Yes.
Courtesy of migration. If we had not done that, it would not happen today. During COVID, when we were hard here,
yes,
do you know we could actually have Council of Governors meetings from all 47 counties We are seated at the State House with the president, and all 47 governors are logged in. I don't think there are countries, maybe Rwanda. I don't think there are many countries in sub-Saharan Africa that have got that capability. Courtesy of migration, liberalizing and ensuring that we spread the broadband footprint in the country. So it was, and then of course, blowing up and open our creative market, and then allowing innovation to thrive. We needed it. Our president had campaigned on a digital platform. He was going to run a digital government. How would you move services? And the fintech sector was growing exponentially. I mean, we are the home of M-Pesa. Kenya is the digital capital of Africa. How would you then manage an environment where we are all held hostage by 3 broadcasters, and they were hogging the proceeds from that? That's why we had to migrate. And people tell me about bulldozing. That was the right thing to do at that right time, and it needed courage, focus, and vision. The political will by the president to ensure that it was done is something to be celebrated. Otherwise, we would have all been compromised and intimidated because of politics, and we would never have migrated. There are countries in Africa right now that are struggling.
How long did it take between the warning? Because I remember 1 minute hearing they need to migrate by this day, then the next time total shutdown, and then it happened. How long had they been given?
We went to the ITU, the International Telecommunications Union. This is a UN organization. This is the international organization where we discuss all these things about broadband and spectrum management. Every time even now, every time the government goes to the ITU, there are private sector players who go there and so on. We had gone there and all agreed that we are going to start migration. In fact, by the time I was arriving at the ministry, the dates and everything had been set. Okay. My job was to execute the agreement that was there. And then, characteristic of, people playing corners, trying to manipulate, or coming around saying, oh, we are not ready, give us more time, and so on. And, I said, Twende kazi. We fought until the Supreme Court, because I knew we were right, we won. And when we got the judgment at the Supreme Court, the media houses tried to blackmail us by turning off the TVs. I told them, you will switch them back on yourselves. And they did.
And why do you think they were resisting? Because I always hear that digital is cheaper. It's cheaper to run. It's cheaper to maintain. Why was
control. The whole thing is about monopoly. It's about control. Okay. You see now, my good friend, you have a market. In fact, you probably have more viewers and then you circulate to more people than some media houses. Yeah. That is what they are avoiding. It's a competition. They want us to be the only ones who are source of information. So you either suck up to them or you perish. And it was money.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And then why they switch to education? Like what happens like during the reshuffle? Because, but before that, laptops. Nani yako nafaa kutupatia laptops? Wewe ama the ICT after
you? See, the truth of the matter is this. The president, the president and deputy president had promised that they're going to run a laptop project. Truth be told, the intention was good. The execution and the planning was not very well thought out, to be honest with you. Because later on, even when you looked at the proposal, you could see, I'm not going to lie here and start, buffooning like everybody. I have to be very honest. The thought through did not happen in terms of looking at the budget. There are so many things, actually. If you could go down the criteria, there are so many things you would do that ought to have been thought about before that promise was made. They were not thought about. For example, capacities. Yes. You see, at the time we were doing that, even if we provided the laptops, our broadband footprint was not that expansive. Secondly, we hadn't developed sufficient digital content. We were going to have laptops, yes, but what was going to be in those laptops? Now we are talking about writing education content on device-neutral platforms because, digital content is everywhere. You can get it on your phone, you can get it on your iPad, you can get it on your TV, and so on and so forth. But look at the time space we are talking about. It changed quite significantly. So at that time, the intention was good. The government was well determined, but the whole policy ecosystem had certain fundamentals that were not right that could never have enabled that project to succeed, honestly speaking. So if I had been asked at that point in time, I probably would have said, it's a continuum. We are going to do this over a period of time. Instead of saying we will come to government and immediately do this. Because you see, when you arrive immediately, you need to have an infrastructure in place. You need to have a sufficient broadband footprint on which that content is going to ride. Then there is the elephant in the room called capacity. I can give you a gadget. And then what happens with the gadget? You don't have even people to train and even enable the kids to use the gadget. So the question is that, you see there are two approaches you could go into this matter. There's a device-central or a device-centered approach of education and a content-centered approach to education. What works everywhere in the world is a content-centered approach. Generate content, work on the infrastructure, and then move. You can't start with infrastructure and devices, and then there is no content. So that promise was actually starting from essentially the left. That, you are beginning with devices. I mean, I can give you a phone. If you don't know how to use it, you can't use it. So that was the problem with that policy, to be honest with you. And I think, fortunately for me, and to be positive on this, a lot of lessons were learned from that experience, even by government itself. That's why later on, if you look at the programs now that President Kenyatta started pushing very hard during his second term, they were all responding to that issue. Number one, NEMIS, the National Education Information Management System, making sure that we have accurate data for all students and so on. Digitalization of the curriculum to ensure that we have content available on the digital platform and it can actually ride and be delivered on device-neutral platforms. You can get it anywhere. Capacity building for teachers. Almost making it mandatory for schools that are training teachers to train, computer literate teachers is no longer a choice. They must be prepared to be able to teach and deliver content on that platform. And then the NOVB, the National Fiber Optic Infrastructure. The president drove that very hard to create the infrastructure across the country so that now, when we start writing content and delivering content, we don't have infrastructural problems. You can, the broadband footprint has grown. That's why I'm telling you, by the time COVID was striking, we could do a meeting with the Council of Governors online.
Okay. Yeah. So how does education come up? Why was the reshuffle done, and why did you also? Because if I'm doing a good job at ICT, I might ask the president, let me just stay here. But then education.
It doesn't happen like that in government. First of all, I don't know why the reshuffle was done. Let's begin from that point. It's ministerial appointment and cabinet service is the prerogative of the president.
Yes.
And you are appointed to be minister, at the mercy of the president. So the president is the one who organizes his team.
Yes.
So he deemed it fit at that time to organize his team as he did. He asked me to go to Jogoo House. So I arrived in Jogoo House on 15th of November. And took over from Professor Jacob Thuradira Kaimenyi, my colleague, Minister for Education then. And then started dealing with the situation I found there. I mean, that's life. You deal with your situation as you find it. So I arrived there, took over from Professor Kaimenyi. It was a tough decision. Not a tough decision to make, it was a fearful decision to make for me.
Yes.
Fearful because the exam that year had leaked like a sieve. NEC was leaking all over the place. You see exams on KTN in the evening or on NTV in the evening, and they are done the following day. So the country was very sick of the kind of things we were doing at that time. And I remember the words of the president, when he told me after the reshuffle, he told me, if we don't manage this thing, it can actually cost us the elections in 2017. Because the parents are very angry and the students are very angry. Teachers can't believe that we are not able to manage this thing. So I said, let me do my bit. When I went there. Contrarily, I don't know whether I should say this here, but let me say it anyway. The way, God arranges life, I don't know. This is the place I was least enthusiastic to go to. And this is the place that almost defined my public service career. It's very interesting. It's so ironical. Because when the reshuffle was announced, I was in Mombasa. And, for so many reasons, I was feeling like I mean, asking myself, why does the president want me to go to Jogoo House and the kind of madness going on now in the sector? You know, the teacher unions that time, my good brother and friend, Simon Sosion, is spitting fire and brimstone on in the media every day, teacher unions. And then, you know, now, me, I had a unique situation, which I have to say. My own brother, John, was the national treasurer of KNUT. And now I am going to Jogoo House to now get to a point where I have to face my brother, you know, on very controversial public policy issues. But secondly, and most importantly, the ecosystem is very complicated at that particular time because of the feelings of the mood in the country. It's like the mood in the country now and Goonism. You know, where everywhere you go, you can see clearly that this government is having very serious challenges providing security in the country. Then you wake up in the morning and they're told, you know what, head to the Minister of Interior, you know. So that is what happened at that particular time. The only person I spoke to at that time was my wife. I mean, and she asked me, what are you going to do? I told her, I don't know, but the feeling I have is not a good one. Then she told me, okay, sometimes I keep saying she's probably the reason why I went to the ministry, because she told me, it's okay, let's pray about it. You pray about it. Don't make any decision in a hurry. And come home. When you come, we will talk some more about it. So when I came back, we spoke about it. Then she first of all, I didn't say that I was going to quit because I'm not a quitter. But she talked me out of anything silly. She said, you know, I see you enjoy a very good relationship with the president. And, you know, trust that he knows what he's doing. If he told you to go, why don't you go by faith? Let's just pray about it. Just go by faith and do your job, your best. You know, and so on. So anyway, the rest is water under the bridge. So I arrived there because everything I did was in the public domain. You know, at that time, we began the work of remaking the sector. And actually, let me say this today, that when I write my public service history, I had an interesting time at the Ministry of Interior. But the climax of my real exciting public service career was at Jogoo House. Yeah, confronting the thugs, you know, in trying to interfere with the lives of our children in the education sector, and dismantling the cartels that had existed in that sector for a very long time. That's why I feel like
people who are not in government always hear cartels. So what sort of cartels exist in education?
no, what happens is that, you see, you know, over the years, and it happens everywhere. You know, I even met a number of them in the security sector. You see, people, and first of all, it's human, and secondly, it's a factor of functioning or non-functioning institutions. You see, it's very easy for you to sit down if you are, for example, education officers, and you have access to certain budgets, for example, or you are suppliers in the education sector, like now textbook suppliers. It's easier for you to collude and connive, you know? You look at the budget and so on, and then start figuring, okay, how do we get this money? This is what we do. You start looking for ways of beating the system so that you make money. It's easy to look at, for example, the supply of food to schools through the school feeding program.
Yes.
And look at the budget, it's X billions. And then now, connive and plan, how do we make money in this particular environment? And if you have the cooperation of officials, public officials,
Yes.
and you get away with such nonsense, then it becomes a culture. Then you form a way of enriching yourself through that kind of thing. So what you do is you wait for the budget. Once it has been allocated, mnakutana mahali, hapa tunafanya namna gani, wewe utakula hii na mimi nitakula hii, that kind of rubbish. It happens in many sectors. The ultimate price is paid by members of the public who suffer as a result. When systems don't work and so on. So when people are not looking, when people are not supervising, when people are not paying attention to what happens, the end user or the service consumer, who in this case is Mwananchi, is the one who suffers. So if you are a parent, how will you know the cartels in the provision of books? You know, there was something silly I found in the Ministry of Education called no, not book launch. It used to be book festival or something in schools. So where, you know, principals would call a meeting, say now people come, they bring books, they donate books to schools and so on. When that is happening, the government has provided in the budget money for books, which don't get to schools because some people have colluded and gone to Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development. And they have said they have introduced something called a yellow book. Okay? The yellow book, orange book, I don't know what it was called, where you put in titles that are supposed to be bought. That in itself is a corrupt process. Publishers go there to bribe so that their titles can be put on that list. And then now they go to the schools now because the money is sent directly to the head teachers. They go to the schools now to try and convince the principals to buy books from them. And because there is no effective supervision on the end of the officers, we send money to schools. I arrive in a school, I ask the principal, because I have the records from Jogo. You received 10 million shillings for books. Where are the books? And then some principals start telling you stories. Oh, you know, I allow children to go home. I don't know what. Like one principal lied to me. I have collected them. They are all in the library. He didn't know that at the end of that day, I'm going to tell him, now take me to the library so that I count the books with you. And there were no books, you know. So that used to happen. And then, you know, turning up in a school. What lesson is this going on? Chemistry. Okay, fine. Do you have a textbook provided by the school? Yes. How many? You have 43 students in a class. Can you raise up your textbook? 4 textbooks in a class of 43 kids. Then you start following the route and you discover it is a collusion between the suppliers, the education officials, and in some cases the principals. So, and then you know, it was exciting because to solve problems, real problems, makes a big difference. Okay. And I enjoyed doing that.
And why did you feel the need to get the results out in a short time? Because I remember during our time you do the exams in December, unangoja hata mpaka February kabla results zitoke. Then during your time, like one of the things you made sure was results come out really fast.
What is the need of delaying results? You have done an exam, you need the results so that you know, because it's a stage of a transition, you're going to the next level. Some Kenyan parents would like their kids to enroll in schools outside Kenya. What is the reason why you do exams and marking ends in December before Christmas, the results come out in March? That whole thing was a process of cooking results. There is no reason why. That was a process of cooking results. Because you see, every marking ends by Christmas. Markers go home for Christmas. They are paid and they go home, which means they have completed marking. So why are we waiting to release the exams in March? What happens between December and March in between here? That's when people are collecting money now. Exams cancel, people are saying, I want 100 A's. Go and bring 5 million. I don't know, I want 120 A's. Go and bring 7 million. That's all that was happening during that time. And so that, because how is it that some schools that, and I don't want to name names, that in the previous year had about 120 A's, in 2016 when we put our foot down, they couldn't manage 20.
Okay. But now
it's the buying and selling of grades that was going on during that time. And of course, you see, the fact that you're doing it in an analog manner is itself intended to facilitate that theft. And then that manipulation of results. I've been asked this question several times. I've given so many brown bag presentations elsewhere in the world about this. Look, my friend, in this day and age of technology, Kenya Commercial Bank has probably more customers than any Form 4 students across the country.
Yes.
So you can deposit your money in Kisumu and withdraw it in Mombasa. Or you can deposit your money in Nyeri and withdraw it in Nakuru. So why don't we manage exams that way? That's the question I kept asking. So that if we are marking biology paper 1 in Kisumu girls, and Kiswahili paper 1 in Alliance Girls, and physics in Mango, and we're marking chemistry paper 2 in Machakos Girls, you have an IT center there. So that, because every child has got one index number for all the papers. So that index number is a UPI, is a unique personal identifier. We key that in, and we do all the columns. So once I finish marking my paper 2, I put the marks for that paper 2. And the one in Kisumu finishes marking the Kiswahili. For the same student, you dump it in that column. The one in Machakos Girls dumps it in that same column. And then, when the last examiner puts their pen down, you aggregate the marks and release the results. Why should that be rocket science? You see, some of these systems that have been done, it's like the unbearable madness going on in City Council here today. When people tell you that now we have gone back to the analog system of paying rates and paying fees for land. Why? Why? In a country that is the digital capital of Africa. Why? This is nonsense that I keep saying. Nipe nafasi as president. We sort this thing out. Because we should not subject people to that kind of suffering. And it's being done deliberately, believe you me, so that people can tell you on our way. Zungumza vizuri. Zungumza vizuri means bribe me.
Eko nene, so nimekuwa nikibonga na wasi wako US, najua, na wasi wangu wako US jo, kama bado hujajoin Lemfi jo, nangoja nini, make sure umetumia promo code Eko nene. But saizi, wacha nibonge na wasi wako Europe, na pia nibonge na wasi wako Brito. Usisahau kuwa join Lemfi na tumia promo code Eko nene, so that on your first transaction ya 100 euros, utabaki umepata 10 euros cashback. Na kama uko Britain, on your first transaction ya 100 pounds, utabaki umepata 10 pounds cashback. So nangoja nini? Baki umechangamka. Na usahau kuwa bado ukiwa hizo area za majuu, utabaki umepay your bills hapa Kenya. Tuseme unataka kulipia madhako internet, ama unataka kumlipia stima, unaweza tumia paybill haraka. Madha anaweza kupigia jua kuambia yuko kwa line jo, anataka till, yani umwambie tu tuma till number, alafu unaingia kwa Lemfi, unabaki umechangamka haraka. So baki umechangamka, fika Lemfi, tumia promo code Eko nene. Jia nini? Lemfi ni international payments for everyone. Eko nene. So of course, like one of the controversies from your time at the Ministry of Education was the whole Ruaraka land thing. So how did that work? Because afterwards, there are people like Itumbi who've used that and said it showed that you are as corrupt as the rest.
You know, the unfortunate thing in public life in our country is I raise this issue all the time when it comes to debates about political literacy as opposed to functional literacy. Because we sometimes are a society that is easily driven by rumor and gossip. Sometimes, and people don't take time to dig up things and get facts the way they are. Somebody can come up and say, Mwafrika stole my shop. And whether or not it is true, if they keep repeating it all the time, people might think probably actually Mwafrika stole their shop.
Yes.
The point of the matter is this, and I have no problem how many times I'm going to explain this, as many times as I get an opportunity, so that everybody understands this. And then I hope you'll give me time to explain this.
Yes,
you know, when before 2010 Constitution, the powers to acquire land and property by compulsory acquisition, what is known as compulsory acquisition, the powers lay with the Minister for Lands.
Yes.
In 2010, a commission was created. It's Chapter 15 Commission, National Land Commission. All public land is managed by the National Land Commission. And the National Land Commission handles all matters related to public land.
Yes.
In fact, as the law is today, even the Minister for Lands, the Cabinet Secretary for Lands today, cannot compulsorily acquire land anywhere in this country. It is the National Land Commission that has got the mandate to do that. And they're the custodians of all title and information on public land. While I was in the Ministry of Education, I came to discover later, you know, when now people started making allegations about this, I started looking at the files. At various stages at the ministry, I was involved in almost 10 or 11 acquisitions of land. Some of them were not even complete when I was leaving Jogo House. Others are probably going on up to this time. I can remember so many of those controversial cases where, like a school in Kirinyaga, a school in Nyandarua, and so on and so forth, where people come up and say this school is in private land. Or these people build the school and the school stretched to private land. The institution that has got the mandate to determine that is the National Land Commission. It's just that Section 7 of the Act requires that when the National Land Commission is engaged in acquisition of that nature, the parent ministry, whether it is the Ministry of Agriculture or Education or whatever the case may be. I dealt with similar cases when I was in the Ministry of Interior. Actually, I will explain to you again shortly. Confirms public interest before the National Land Commission proceeds. Confirm public interest. So in that whole matter of land acquisition, of the acquisition of that land in Ruaraka, there was a flurry of correspondence and engagement between the ministry and my peers, who's the accounting officer of the ministry, is the one at the forefront of all those paperwork and engaging with the rest of the agencies, including actually the Office of the Attorney General of the Republic of Kenya, who is the chief legal advisor of government. So the National Land Commission writes and says there is a claim they are processing. A claim has been made by a private citizen who claims that a school is built on land that is theirs, that is not government land. Now, the National Land Commission writes to the Ministry of Education so that we confirm public interest. In fact, the letter, I remember the chairman of the National Land Commission addressed to me was asking me under the law to confirm public interest in the school. This is a school that receives capitation from the government. This is a school that has got TSC teachers. That is the public interest that I confirmed. You have no powers as the Cabinet Secretary for Education to acquire land. And even the Cabinet Secretary for Lands has no powers to acquire land. So in the process, the National Land Commission proceeds and acquires the land. And does the procedures the way they're supposed to be done in government. Letters are written to the National Treasury. Funds are found. Compensation is paid. But now, when it comes to resolving the matter or dealing with the matter, no one addresses the process. It is always, a very systematic and, targeted effort to drag me as a minister into an act where I actually did not have powers at all. And if you look at, I took time and of course, consulting with the lawyers. If you read the 68-page ruling of the Court of Appeal, it doesn't even make reference to the Minister of Education as it is. Secondly, the National Land Commission has had, the High Court has made so many rulings. I came to learn from some lawyers that the court has ruled in many cases of compensation on what the National Land Commission did before and so on. In fact, I think, and then I respect the wisdom of the judges of the Court of Appeal. They point out that in this whole matter, the National Land Commission made a mistake. That's how they describe it. A mistake in the way in which they interpreted the law about the acquisition and surrender of part of that land for the use by the public.
Yes.
The judges don't say the National Land Commission committed a fraud or the National Land Commission committed a theft or something. They point out that it is an interpretation mistake, like they have done in many other cases, which have been reversed by the court, in some cases where actually the law allows NLC, where they have paid compensation and later on it discovered that the compensation was paid in error, they are allowed to recover and ask for the money to be refunded. No one is engaged in all that to find out what exactly happened. There is, a very targeted and pointed accusation, and targeting my direction without fact, without anything, a very prejudicial and determined way. The reason why I don't comment much and I don't talk a lot about this issue is because the facts are there to, for everybody who cares to see. Later on, when I came to the Ministry of Interior, I dealt with similar cases. There is a police station here in Ongata Rongai, where a family had sold land to a community group that wanted a police station built there. the police station was built, but apparently the police station was built on 1.5 acres instead of the 1 acre that the family had sold. The owner of that land has even died. In fact, it is says that his children who came to government to say, our father sold 1 acre of land, but the police station occupies 1.5 acres. It's a matter of the National Land Commission to determine whether, resurvey the land, determine whether payment can be done. What we were asked as Ministry of Interior is to confirm public interest. In other words, to say, yes, indeed, there is a police station there. There are police officers there. There's a police station there. There's an OCS who operates from there. That is our role. So I keep asking myself this question. If I was guilty and wrong on that issue of Ruaraka, why am I not guilty and wrong on this issue of the police station? Because I played the same role, the same way in which I was asked to confirm public interest. I confirmed public interest. So what was I supposed to do as a minister in the case of this police station? Say that there's no public interest, there's no police station. Or what was I supposed to say in the case of the school? Say that there is no school or there's no public interest in the school. So the challenge in most cases I can see is extreme personalization of things. And I dare say here, I can tell you candidly that it is unfortunate, but our society, some people are driven by hate. You know, they develop intense hatred. Yes, some of these people, when they were in public service, they were sacked from ministries where I was, or they were dismissed in circumstances. I have never acted singularly because I wouldn't have malice on an individual public servant. Anytime matters of this kind are discussed in the public service, they are discussed very openly. And then ministers, from time to time, I cannot talk for anybody, but for me as a minister, every time you deal with these issues, you actually put the matters on the table and ask the professionals what they think about the matter. Even the letter I wrote in response to the chairman of the National Land Commission was drafted by the lawyers of the ministry. Because they come to you, the PS comes and says, this file, this is what's happening, this is what we are supposed to do. Then you tell the lawyers, proceed. And the lawyers prepare the letter for you and you sign. And for that, for people to build a hateful case around that, just always with keen interest to portray you maliciously and in a negative manner, and so on. It is unfair, but we always get to that point where you ask yourself the question, what can you do? When you're in public service, you are there, people will make the claims, your responsibility is to explain the matter the best way you know how and provide the facts. And the facts will vindicate you.
So why do you feel like, because you ended up being like every time you search, if you right now you go to Twitter and you write Ruaraka land thief, you're going to show up there. And the story is the 1.5 billion was released, yes? But this was public land. So there was no way to confirm that the government was buying its own land and giving an individual.
Mafrika, that's a very good question you're asking. Not by the Ministry of Education. Not by the Ministry of Education. The Ministry of Education has no records or any information on any land. Today, even if we went to look for the records of the land on which Mango High School stands or Alliance High School stands, they will not be at the Ministry of Education. The Ministry of Education is not the custodian of all these details. Even if you went to look for the records of Kisii High School at the Ministry of Education, you will not find them there. The property is owned. In fact, the titles are kept by the Treasury. And because that is public property and public land, the custodian is the National Land Commission. You can do nothing with it. It's the National Land Commission. Even the Minister for Lands today, the Cabinet Secretary for Lands, I'm telling you, you cannot have powers of any kind on public land under the new law. It's the National Land Commission. So you see, to keep going back on this issue, is always to look for this very strenuous effort to drag me into something because, and I understand, I understand the frustrations of my detractors that, I was in public service as a cabinet minister for 10 years. I am not holy. I am not from heaven. I could have made mistakes like anyone else makes mistakes. But when they look for things to which they can pin my name on, they don't find them. So it's easier to just keep strenuously, to stretch and overstretching even of imagination, to keep dragging me to a corner, all the time. Because as I said, every time my public service career comes up, There's one song with 3 stanzas that is presented. The stanza 1 is Ruaraka, and the stanza 2 River Yala, stanza 3 court orders. Oh, I disobeyed court orders. Oh, there are people who died in River Yala. And I've explained this before, and I will explain it as many times as I'm asked.
Okay.
So that everybody understands what the facts are.
So you understand, one of the people who pushes the Ruaraka land thing is Itumbi. You understand why he was angry at you? Because he says he was abducted by the government during your time, and you're the Minister for Interior during that period.
You see, first of all, Africa, let me tell you the truth. When you say some things, be sure that they are actually factual. That same gentleman ran around here saying a group of senior public officers, including cabinet ministers and PSS, were meeting in a hotel on Thika Road to plot the assassination of the then deputy president. Okay? They wrote letters, they made a case, and so on. Now, they are in government. The president is the chairman of the National Security Council. All the files and the documents are there. 4 years down the road, they have never produced a single shred of evidence on how ministers and PSS were meeting to plot the assassination of the then deputy president. You know what these people are characteristic of, and I'm not shy to say this. This administration and its leaders, including that gentleman whose name you're mentioning, I don't want to mention his name, they are masters of lies, merchants of deceit. That is the way they live. They have lived their lives like that. They lie all the time, and they believe they live by lies, exist by lies, and they live in a world of make-believe. That is how they are. It's like they're inoculated against the truth. They will never be attacked by the truth. They are horrible, I'm telling you. They lie all the time. And when it is convenient for them to lie, they to say things, they just say lies. And they back them up with propaganda and innuendo and everything else. Look at the amount of money they are spending now on lies and propaganda as a way of buttressing their stay in office.
Okay.
And then that is how they have lied their way all through, even since the campaign. They will lie about everything and everybody.
So now,
so for example, if I was not a guy who just says, God will bear me out, I would sue him for defamation. You know, there is no court in this land that has charged me to have stolen anything from anybody. He can't prove anything he tells you. But because at some point he was sacked from government and he believes I was responsible for it, they will continue lying, about those kinds of things. They are driven by hate.
Okay.
They breathe, they drink, they live hate. Their culture and their politics and their way of managing life is through hate. They hate people, even for nothing. And they're very dictatorial. It's either you agree with them or you are an enemy. And in between, there's no gray area, even for accommodation or even for telling people, maybe these facts are not right. Maybe let's give them benefit of doubt. Nothing. So they'll persist on that. Hatred, pushing a line that is characteristic by, driven by hatred.
Okay. So when were you appointed as the Minister for Interior? After the second term or?
No, just before the second term. In 2017, just before the elections. My colleague, the late retired General Joseph Kaiseri died about a month to the general elections. So I was asked by the President to act as Cabinet Secretary for Interior during that time. And I continued to stay for several months, actually, during that time. People never noticed that for nearly 6 or 7 months, I was both the Minister for Education and the Minister for Interior in the country. I used to walk to Jogo House in the afternoon, maybe start my day at Interior, go to Jogo in the afternoon as Minister for Education, sometimes start my day at Jogo House and walk back to Interior in the afternoon and carried on that way. But it was a blessing to serve. I have no complaint about it.
Okay. So that part is marked by a lot of police brutality, especially against ODM supporters. So if we were to start with baby Pendo, for example, she stands out. So what was happening that time? Because when I look at Kenya's history, I always say that the Uhuru government got away with a lot of atrocities.
No, you are not right.
That the Ruto government is not getting away with.
No, you are not right.
Baby Pendo was killed in the house. Remember?
You see,
she was not outside. She was killed in the house.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm the first one to admit to you that, police, like any professionals in the country, commit crimes, commit mistakes. Actually, let me step back and tell you this. Even priests and pastors commit mistakes. That is why a church organization or a deaconry will sit down and say, this pastor made a member of the choir pregnant. So how do we discipline this guy?
Yes.
Because they have regulations and non-canonical conduct, because they know that pastors and priests do get tempted by women or the other way around. And they do make even their congregants pregnant, and they can have relationships out of wedlock. And so is every profession. There are lawyers in this town, in this country, who have eaten their clients' money and they have been promptly punished. There are teachers who have had affairs with their students and they have been punished for it. The puritanical attitude sometimes we adopt when it comes to security sector sometimes amazes me. The reason why the standing orders of the police are this thick is because everyone knows the temptation the police would face to even misuse their firearms, to even act outside of their powers. Every time there is an operation, there is something called an operational order that is issued by senior police officers. The operational order describes in very specific terms what the task is, how it is supposed to be executed. And when police go outside the operational order, the standing orders say clearly how they are supposed to be punished. First of all, through what is described in the police service as orderly room proceedings. Then, if the mistakes they have committed are so grievous, then they are subjected to the criminal justice system. That exists. I am the last person to lie here that, police or any other security people don't commit crimes. They do.
Yeah.
And when they do, it does not mean that they were sent by the minister or they were sent by the... Where it makes a difference, and please mark my words, where it makes a difference is how does that minister behave when those crimes have been committed.
Okay.
If I am the Minister for Education, I am told that teachers in a school, let me say XYZ girls, students and so on, I become culpable when I'm asked the question, what did I do? Because I have powers. Under the Act, schools belong to me as the Minister for Education. What did I do when that information came? Did I go to TSC and ask TSC to act? And what did TSC do, and so on and so forth? In this case, first of all, you are not right in saying that there was a lot of police brutality.
Yes, there was.
There was police brutality. I will not pretend here and lie that there wasn't. There were mistakes committed by police. Whether it's the Kejogoma brothers, whether it is the Baby Pendo issue, there is nowhere on record I have ever defended what happened. In fact, when we were called upon as government, particularly the Ministry of Interior and the Police Service Commission, to cooperate and take the decisions we needed to take, it was a classic case of full and 360 cooperation on the part of government with the criminal justice system so that the officers face the law. And in both cases, the proceedings are going on in court, which means that our policing doctrine was violated as government. We are the custodians of the policing doctrine as government, as the Minister for Interior. And I will not shirk, hide, or bend from my responsibility. I will face up with the people of Kenya and say, yes, I was the minister. The policing doctrine of the country, it was my responsibility to ensure it was executed. What did I do when it was violated? I cooperated fully with the criminal justice system.
Because the reason I'm asking this is, I always say that to solve Kenya, we have to look at the present and the past. So the present, I think, was like a few weeks back, there were the elections in Olkalau, and the first thing that happened was very heavy police presence, yes? And if you go back to 2017, just before the elections, we could see trucks going to Kisumu. And you see that's used as a what can be classified as intimidation of the opposition. So that's whatever was happening a few weeks back is what happened during that time. So how can we justify the heavy police presence in Kisumu?
By the way, let me tell you something. On this particular one, and I am prepared to face anybody's challenge on this matter.
Yeah.
A political leader from Kisumu made a statement, and I called reporters to my office and challenged them. Said that we were moving body bags to Kisumu before the elections. I asked the media, let's go to Kisumu, show me one body bag and I will leave. I will resign. The tragedy of the matter is that that senior political leader did not even come back to apologize when it turned out that he was actually lying. Secondly, the same senior political leader claimed in a press conference that the then ministry spokesperson, Kano Ogun, had disappeared. He said that at 9 o'clock. At 11 o'clock, the same officer he was talking about went to a press conference and said he had not disappeared to any place, he's around and arrived. The political leader never came back to apologize. Even this thing, if deployment is happening around the country, let's be absolutely fair and factual. If deployment is happening during, an important activity, whether the activity is elections or census and so on, and police vehicles are moving one way or the other, first of all, it is not true to say that the police trucks were seen going in a particular direction. It's not true to say that.
But they were seen. I remember there was footage. There was footage all over the media.
No, you see, in this day and age of fake news and so on, I don't know what to believe. Because the question you ask yourself is this: if you are moving, let's say, and this is a practical question, my brother. If you are moving 15 or 20 trucks of police officers in one direction, what happens in the other direction of the country? Does not need to be policed or what not. You see, let's be, I know that some of these issues can be emotive and sensitive, but I always would politely and responsibly come back to one thing. Without facts, we will not solve a problem.
Okay.
And all these things are impressionistic statements that are made, or emotional statements that are made, or at best you can describe them as political statements that are made. There was no need. I mean, to the best of my recollection, and you can challenge me with facts, there was no need. We were not aware. I mean, as at the time I was Minister for Interior in 2017, I cannot remember of there being a need to do a surge of police officers in any part of the country, because there was no danger in Kisumu. There was no danger anywhere in the country that would have required a surge of any kind. But even then, even if you took 10 or 15 or 20 police trucks to Kisumu and so on, there is nothing they would do unless there was an operational order that required that number of police officers being placed. I don't know of any. If you know it, please publish it. And we will ask the Inspector General immediately, because he's the one who actually supervises that operational order. We will ask him immediately, why did you issue this operational order? Because in any case, by the way, do not imagine that the senior police officers would issue operational orders willy-nilly. They know that they can and could actually be called to account on those orders they issued. When it comes to stepping up the operational order to a point of curfew, then the Minister for Interior must sign. Nobody asked me to sign any special operation in Kisumu in 2017. So the truth of the matter is that we need to check our facts. But by the way, let me remind you something.
Yes.
I was in Harambee House as Minister for Interior. When Raila went to Ruaraka, they held a meeting, he swore himself in, and not a single bullet was shot. Not a single tear gas canister was used at Uhuru Park, and people went away peacefully and there was no problem.
Yes,
which means the doctrine of policing, because that is your charge as a minister, that is your responsibility. Are you ensuring that the doctrine of policing is actually respected if it is violated in cases where it's violated blatantly, like in the case of Olkalau?
Okay.
What have you done?
We will talk about the 20, because the way that was handled was one of the best things that happened. There'd have been a lot of bloodshed on that day. But if you had to go back to 2017, let me just go a little bit ahead. Msando dies, yes? Msando dies. A lot of, like half of Kenya thought the government had killed him. There's never been any investigation till now, 5 years later. I dealt with the Kenya police a few weeks back when my studio was broken into, and they solved that crime so fast. Chaiwali was attacked a few weeks back, and it was solved so fast. So it looked like Msando, there was no political goodwill to solve his murder, and everything pointed at the government. So what would you say about that? Because you were part of that cabinet.
You know, by the way, at all times, when a matter, it's common, and I don't blame the public or don't blame anyone, because for sure, the government is the backstops here. You're the government, so you should take responsibility. And I'm the one who always says, I will not make excuses. I'll face up with the issues. It's always common for people to conclude the government was not involved and so on. You know, when I started in Harambee as the Minister of Interior, I can tell you we have matters that have not been resolved. Some of them are 17 years old, 18 years old, 20 years old, and so on. Every matter is unique in its own way. I came across a case, and please allow me to narrate this experience so that you can understand how difficult it can be. Somebody was doing excavation in the area around Nakumatt Junction. I was Minister for Interior. A property developer was excavating the place to start building apartments. And the tractor lifted up human bones in that site. They stopped because clearly this was a body. And then they immediately reported the matter to Mudangari police station. And the police came, they collected the remains and so on. And they were told to stop, excavation for a while until we got, experts, forensics, to look at that site because clearly a body had been there for several years. Then the matter came to our attention. I was the minister at that time. So we said, fair enough, let's go. We get the forensic data, and so on. Let's try and see whether we have any information from our records that would point fingers or point us or take us in the direction of these bones that we have found here. You know what was discovered? There's a barmaid who had died in around Dagoretti some 15 or so years earlier. Some woman who had been reported that they had disappeared. But clearly after some years, it turned out that somebody had killed her and buried her body in that particular place. So generally, investigations began at that time. They began the painful experience of piecing things together and doing the forensics and so on. Until finally they went to look for police reports and what this had happened. And this is something that happened about 12 or 13 or so years earlier in the process. And the people had, this woman was working at the bar in Dagoretti. She was reported that she disappeared. Kumbe, she had actually been killed by somebody. They went to even look for the suspects and people on record who were said to have been with her and so on and so forth. The investigation ended. Now, that is a matter that had happened many, many years earlier. You see the challenge we have, and I say this, let me make this revelation to you, that one of the challenges we face with crime in this region, particularly the Eastern Africa region, which people usually don't talk about, but let me say it as a way of also, helping people understand some of the challenges. Many of the countries in our region here do not have personnel data like we do. In other words, if I went and collected fingerprints from a site where a murder has happened, in the case of Kenya, we have data. I can go to the registration bureau and very easily try to match the fingerprint. And over a period of time, even if it takes me a week or a month, I'll be able to trace the details of this person. But if the fingerprints I collect from here are from an assassin from Uganda or from DRC Congo and so on, those people don't have fingerprints. I remember when I was in Interior, we hit a brick wall several times in cases where people were pursued and it looked like there are people who were hired or assassins who were hired from outside this environment.
Okay.
So until a file has been closed in terms of investigation, until a file has been closed, it is not easy to say that, this is what happened in this matter. We have so many unresolved matters in Kenya.
But you understand why this was a case of public interest where not a single person has ever been arrested. You understand how weird that is, like in a country where the police are really good at their job. But apart from that, if you are to jump from that because of we don't have time, the next thing I'd ask you is, do you remember in 2017 you released a statement and you asked people not to share images of what was happening in Kisumu? And that's the reason why I always say that a lot of atrocities committed by the Uhuru government never never went on record. That's there. Like if you go on the newspaper, you can check. In August 2017, Kenyan authorities, including then Interior Minister, warned social media users against sharing inflammatory messages, fake news, and unverified images or casualty figures following the disputed general election. And some of the images that were coming from Kisumu were just brains on the streets. You understand? Now, when I look at that and I look at the Ruto government, I'm like, these are two governments being judged from very different perspectives. You are not the president then, but you are the interior minister. So I know everything did not come from you. But can you understand why a few people are apprehensive about you? Like if you are president and you learned from Uhuru, wouldn't you do the same things that were done by the Uhuru government?
That is also, again, a case of stretching an event or interpretation of an event
Yeah.
too far. Because you see, first of all, when something happens, a lot of security people would warn you that when an investigation is going on, in this country, things can turn very fast and become emotional, political, and so on very fast. It is responsible, very responsible. And then don't forget one thing. During this era of fake news and how we manage information,
Yes.
people could share things, and the chances are that the image is not necessarily from Kisumu, but from a different environment. When you're coming from the other side, you can always defend and say, oh, these are images from Kisumu. These are things that, happened in Kisumu and so on. Yet, I am aware, and I'm not defending anybody in this matter, I am aware that there are many, I've lost count, times without number, when people have shared images and made claims of things that happened in a particular place. When the investigators analyze the images, they discover actually the clips are not even from Kenya. They are from a different part of the world.
But in this, let's just stick to Kenya. Let's stick to Kisumu, because Kisumu was the hotbed and Kisumu had the most casualties, yes? So why was this message necessary? Do not share these images, because there are few people who felt like that was to cover up the atrocities. Remember, there was even the tagline, was it the hashtag, Luo Lives Matter? Remember, that happened under the Uhuru government. And this is the reason why, if we fast forward, Ruto comes in and Ruto says, under my government, there is not going to be extrajudicial killings. So do you understand how?
To be absolutely fair and to be factual,
Yeah.
On this particular matter, I think this matter is exaggerated and overplayed, and because it's the only thing that people think they can pin me down on, people keep going back and forth on this matter. I find it very interesting that whether it's media or someone else, someone is busy asking me the question such as you're asking me right now.
Yeah.
Yet you are not worried about that senior political leader from that community who lied twice in a row in one day, and could very easily have inflamed passions and caused, clashes and a problem. It is responsible of a leader. I would say it actually the same. I would say it again today, even if I'm not in government. If an incident happened, and people are sharing images liberally that have not been verified, they could inflame passions and cause a problem.
Yes.
Essentially, that to the best of my recollection, that is all I can remember. But you see, now it's being overplayed and taken out of context and said, oh, there was a massacre or something like that. I honestly don't think there was. And in the case of baby Pendo, we were as outraged. I have expressed my pain about this every time I've had the opportunity. It need not have happened. It was a very, very unnecessary occurrence. It was outside of the operational order. Clearly, not just a mistake, a grievance crime was committed at that particular time. I said so then, I'm saying that now, and I believe in it. You see, there is not so much, or there's not enough you can say about a crime or a mistake when it has happened. But sometimes narrowing on an incident and then over politicizing it in the manner in which it's being done is the issue here. I honestly don't think that there was that much of a problem. In any case, then, by the way, Mwafrika, nothing stops us even now or even 3 years from now to put up an inquiry on that matter. Because you see, some crimes are not protected by the statute of limitation. We can even put up an inquiry on the matter and investigate them and find out. But I can tell you for a fact that there are certain incidents that happen because of the political nature of the country and the political context in which they have happened. Then they are blown out of proportion. They have become larger than life. And then, for example, if you have served such as I have, people look for ways, where can we actually pin him down on? And then they drill on a particular issue and hang on it. Look, I don't know what the record shows right now because I am not in government and I'm not in the ministry. But even when I was there as a Minister for Interior, there were murders then that had happened like 10 or 15 years earlier that had not been resolved.
Okay,
As long as a file is open. And then,
yes.
Before arrests are made, I am sure if you went to that file, there are a lot of statements. There is a lot of information that has been collected on that, circumstantial information that is there, and so on and so forth. Maybe actually it is we are days away or months away or a year away or whatever time away from a conclusion of the matter. You look around the world, my brother. Look around the world.
Yes.
Haven't we been reading in the papers about crimes or murders that happened 17 years ago in the US? Wrongful prosecution and wrongful sentencing that was done 20 years earlier in the US. These things actually happen. I'm not justifying them.
Okay.
I'm simply saying when you are faced with a reality such as we are faced with, let's stay on it until we get to the bottom of the matter. But if we pause in the middle and then start blaming each other, then we don't find a solution. Both you, myself, and others, and all people of goodwill, we would like a conclusive situation on the murder of Msando, on the murder of Kenei, on the murder of all these people. The same thing I've called about River Yala. When this matter came to the National Security Council, we ourselves are the ones who said we should actually have a public inquest on this matter. Then the security sector people said, you go into an inquest when you don't have basic material factors to begin with. If we have bodies, we will go and check the fingerprints. We will now start tracing the families. We will open the file, compile this information, and pursue this matter until we get to the bottom of it. Okay. And every time somebody has brought this up, I am the one who has said myself as a Minister for Interior, please let's have a public inquest. That's how I would like this matter to be closed. Okay. And until it happens, it is going to be fodder for political expedience and the convenience of others.
So can we both agree that there is a police brutality problem in Kenya, that it's not an administration thing, it's a Kenyan thing that we need to solve?
No, it is not a Kenyan thing. Let me tell you the truth about this matter. Because agreeing to a general statement like that amounts to actually condemning the police wholesale. We have a problem, not just in the police department in Kenya. The temptations for the police around the world to sometimes act extrajudicially and sometimes overuse or use the arms beyond the lines of operation on it are real. You have seen cases in the US, you have seen cases in the UK, where even the Scotland Yard is now having investigations and disciplining people. This happens, as I've said, it is because these police officers are human beings. There are some who will act outside of the law and they will commit crimes. Such as I've said, teachers who act out of the law, there are lawyers who act out of the law. Instead of condemning the whole police infrastructure, what we need to focus on is, are we improving in addressing this matter? And where we take political responsibility, and that is why people blame this administration, is the level of action. The action you take when these things have happened. How do you respond to them? I've given you a classic example. If I was a Minister for Education, it's reported that School X has got a problem of this kind. What have I done about it? Now, where we are blaming the administration, or where this administration is blamed, is when you compare action. In all those cases you pointed out, whether it's Kionjokoma, whether it is Pendo, whether it is whatever, we had full 100% cooperation with the criminal justice system.
Was anyone charged for Kionjokoma?
There's a matter in court.
Understand, but do you also feel like the government was too brutal with that? It was COVID. It did not need that level of violence, because there were images of bus drivers being stopped and being whipped by the police. That's the reason why when you hear me like insisting on this, I've not been sent by anyone. I'm just insisting because I used to see these things. I'd see people, grown men, being beaten like kids because they were driving past the curfew. And this was happening under the Uhuru government. So normally when I talk about this, I tell people this is a Kenyan. When I say it's a Kenyan problem, I'm not condemning the police. I'm saying it's something we need to look within ourselves and say we have this problem whereby any government in power always ends up brutalizing its citizens. And when that government leaves, we say it was good, this other one is bad. This other one leaves, another one comes and says the same. So I'm on record saying that I do not think you can stop police brutality. I don't think Kalonzo can stop it. I don't think Sifuna can stop it. I think this is a Kenyan problem and we've never gotten to the root of it. Every government comes and brutalizes its citizens. When you're in government like you won't see it. But we who are outside, we see the bodies, we see the fear, we see grown men being beaten like kids, we see Yasin Moyo who was shot on the balcony in Isili, we see all these things. And I understand as a government there's too much happening. So can we at least agree on that this is a problem that's big, that needs a permanent solution? Like the same way we came up with democracy, we need to come up with. So can we agree on that at least?
No, we can't. Because you see, I mean, I cannot subscribe to something that is essentially escapist and or generalized. Because you see, it cannot be a Kenyan problem. Let me give you an example. A police officer called John Makori or John Musau, for that matter, accosts a bus driver and fights with the bus driver, beats the bus driver, whatever it is that he commits. How is that a Kenyan issue? Is that representative of Kenya? Is that how Kenyans are supposed to behave?
They're not reprimanded.
That's the behavior of John Musau. You don't know. Check whether those people were taken to the ordered room proceedings and so on. And then secondly, by the way, next, I would go forward about this matter. In addition to saying whether or not they were reprimanded, I would go and ask institutionally, what are the institutional safeguards existent? Are they implemented? Because where the rubber meets the road is the management of the institutional safeguards. Again, it's this kind of thing. Because human beings, wherever you go, let us be very honest with each other. Until Jesus Christ comes, wherever you believe, human frailties and weaknesses are there. There will be a priest somewhere who will sleep with their congregant. There will be a teacher who will that's why institutional safeguards are there. So you can't abdicate or escape or be fatalist by saying it's a Kenyan problem. It isn't a Kenyan problem.
I feel like with that,
and you know the other thing,
give a solution. Because right now, a lot of Kenyans think that if it's one term, we are going to live in these rosy places. And for me, when I think of your stint as an interior minister, and I look at the stint of Burkomen and Kindiki, I don't see a difference. I see death in all that. And you're three very different people. So why is this death constant? It means that the Minister for Interior does not have as much power as we think. Or if not, they do not, all of you don't have the political goodwill of changing. And you see, you're someone whose track record for education shows someone who always had the will to change a lot of stuff. But this is one thing you could never change, or you are not able to change. So why? This is the one thing, if you are to put an asterisk to your career, this will always be there.
Look at the scale and look at the response and look at the institutional action about this. Then, by the way, I will lend you a book, maybe you have read it already, called The Power of Positive Thinking. You know, think positively about society and about your country. You know, where we were in 1980, during the one-party state, we've definitely made some progress. We may not have made as much progress as we wanted to make, but we have made some progress. And as we go along, the situation may be what it is today. I have hope, that's the difference, that tomorrow can actually be a better day than today.
Yes.
And we have the wherewithal to make tomorrow a better day than today. And we go into this and we go into these responsibilities because we want to seek ways of making tomorrow a better day than today. If you go about it in that kind of manner, you don't conclude in a very fatalistic manner and give up and say, we will never change. This has nothing to do with the individuals who are there, the Kenyan psyche. In other words, you're saying there's a Kenyan misdemeanor character. It doesn't exist. People will make a mistake. You know, it's like saying there's a pastor in some church I know somewhere here in Nairobi, who had an affair with a congregant and got the marriage, whatever, and so on and so forth. So I can't stand up and say, well, since last year there was another pastor, and the other year there was a pastor. Generally, that is how Kenyan pastors are. It's a Kenyan thing. You can't go like that way. That's what I'm saying, my brother. Look, let's be very frank with each other.
Okay. I think what
these are challenges. So society will go through challenges. We evolve through these challenges. And the question we ask is, are we better off? Can we make this situation better? Yes, we started now training police officers on human rights. We started training cadet police officers, leaders, who when they get out of Kiganjo, they're inspectors, they're going to supervise the others. They will take time to counsel their colleagues, to tell them about the limits of the operational order, what you can and cannot do, and so on and so forth. We, with the hope of starting a mentorship program for the police, so there are people who mentor them, who tell them, no, these are citizens of our country. They will make mistakes, but we shouldn't do this.
Okay.
Was Rome built in one day? No. Is Kenya going to change overnight? No.
So the last,
let's keep going.
Okay, the last question on this matter is, there's a famous quote you did in Nakuru. When you went to Nakuru and you said, the crime problem in Nakuru was so bad. So you said, I do not want to hear about human rights. And then 4 people died. I don't know if you know about that. Brian Obuya did a whole piece about it. And he puts your speech, and then he puts the 4 young people who died. And one of the people, he said, was 16 years old, and he asked the police to kill him next to his mother's grave. This is the reason why, if you see me talking about this and insisting on it, is because I had dreadlocks, and for a very long time I was worried about the police meeting me with dreadlocks. Why? Because the police are brutal. It's a Kenyan, I keep saying it's a Kenyan thing because everyone keeps saying it's a Ruto problem or a Murkomen problem, but I've seen it all through the years that I've been a child. So maybe as we finish, can you talk about the Nakuru thing? Do you have any regrets for that specific sentence?
No,
you don't care about human rights?
No, I don't. Because you see, the question is, I think, you see, out of a speech of a minister or a speech of a president or a speech of anybody, you can take any sentence out and make reference to it. I don't understand the context in which that was. I need to look at the whole speech.
The crime there was too high, so you are angry. No, it was, you're rightfully angry because the crime was too high. So you said this has to stop. And then, but there was that's one extra sentence of, you don't want to hear anyone crying about human rights. And then the police took advantage, killed 4 people.
You know, if this was an academic classroom, I would express myself differently than I'm going to express myself. I know that this is we're in the public space, we're engaging the public in these things and so on. So I'm trying to be as restrained as I can be.
Yes.
In any circles or in any context, it is actually horrendous, if I were to be very honest with you, to take a phrase or a sentence from someone's speech and use it to characterize a situation and characterize that person. And even when that phrase or that speech is not properly understood or contextualized, as it were. You know, detractors, when people are criticizing you, they will never miss to find faults with you, or they will never miss to find mistakes with you. And this is one of those cases. The unfortunate thing for those of us who are in public service, who are in public life, you don't have the luxury to come back and find out and explain the context in which somebody takes up a sentence that you said here, and the circumstance that happened. It could well be actually that even the people that you are telling me about, because I need to have facts about it, because before I comment about it, it could well be that the people who are so allegedly killed by the police, or people who died in that circumstance, had nothing to do with that speech or whatever the case may be. So all I urge is that for all of us, especially because we are entering an election season, to be extremely careful and extremely restrained about some of the things we say and the conclusions we come to, because for those of us who have had the privilege of public service and so on, we hope and would like to be very fairly and very objectively judged and analyzed or evaluated in the things we have done. Yeah. But as I said, it's actually horrendous, and I'm restraining myself, I would describe it otherwise, to pick up a phrase from a speech or a sentence and then use that to characterize someone. Okay. And you see, I see that all the time. You know, I not necessarily in my respect, but I see it being done on other people, you know, and so on. I've seen in cases where people have not even said the things, but they have been inferred to have said, basically, you know.
maybe what we'll do is I'll share with your team, and maybe one day we can talk about it. As we finish up, what does a Matiangi presidency look like? We've seen like some of the positives, even during the Ministry of Interior, was how easy it became to get a passport. It reached a level where we'd go to Nyayo House and we didn't feel like it was a corruption hotbed. So these are the positives. So how does a Matiangi presidency look like? Why do you think you can do a different job from the present president?
You've already said one. You wouldn't pay bribes at my house. I believe that government, in fact, my best explanation of government is to quote Uhuru Kenyatta verbatim. Government is about service. And if government is not rendering service, then it's not government as it is. So it's a service delivery, running an efficient and effective government. I will run an efficient and very effective government in delivering services. Kenyan people don't need the government to cook for them or make their beds or take their children to school. We are very blessed as a country. We have brilliant people, smart people. Government is just supposed to be an enabler, regulate and enable citizens to go about their duties. We are not supposed to government is not supposed to go to people's houses to control what they watch and what they don't watch and so on. Government is supposed to be an enabler, manage the security sector of the country so that people can do business, and move around. As Minister for Interior, I shocked some people. I used to go to city market sometimes at 3 a.m. in the morning. One time I would go with senior police officers and tell them, let's go to city market at 3 a.m. in the morning. Because how those people feel there when they are there at city market is what will give us an impression of how they should feel, whether we are actually doing our work or not doing our work. I used to turn up in schools to be sure that the policies and the things we are passing are actually getting implemented and they're happening, because that is service delivery. The Nyayo house that you have referred to, I used to wake up sometime in the morning and go sit there and talk to people and find out, when did you apply for your passport? Why has it taken 2 days? Where do we have bottlenecks? Government is about service delivery. I mean, I would not be president of a country where thugs close the highway in the capital city of the country like Thika Road at 9 a.m. in the morning. And they rob people clean all over, 1 kilometer away from the DCI headquarters. That is, horrendous incompetence. And Kenyans deserve better, because we are better than this. We are a country that is capable of doing this. And so that's why I'm seeking an opportunity to lead and make my contribution in making our country better. I'm seeking an opportunity to enhance Kenya's opportunity. An opportunity to enhance Kenya's opportunity to grow its economy, Kenyans to thrive and do what they can do best.
Which fields do you feel are under-tapped? Because when you talked about like your stint at ICT and how eventually that ended up giving birth to things like podcasts and such, which other fields do you feel like we can create jobs in? Because a lot of people don't have jobs. A lot of youth don't have jobs. Not just youth, a lot of older people. Right now, we are living longer. That means we need to work longer.
The fastest growing sector in our country is the service industry, the service sector. The reason why we are not effectively growing the service sector is overtaxation and in some cases creating very heavy regulatory and statutory barriers to investment, because it's investment that's going to generate jobs. Governments don't create jobs. Governments enable investment so that, when you have a crime problem in the country, I talk to people in the tourism sector in the country, and they will tell you the horrors about the cancellations they have done since we made a very simple and I honestly think very unwise mistake of, talking about Ebola in Kenya and so on and so forth. Now, people fear. When we talk about all these wounds and the crime around the country, they create fear and anxiety amongst people. It then affects people's investment and then in turn affects the jobs. So it's government needs to act with the welfare of the people at heart. The fastest growing sector in our country with the population we have is the service sector. And the digitalization also offers a big hope for our country. But you see, if we overtax people, we don't improve the broadband infrastructure in the country. We are not investing in improving services. How then will we grow investment and thereby, of course, create jobs? as it is. That's what we need to do. If you cleaned up, places like the coastal areas, fought insecurity and drug movement in the country, like your life depends on it, then resources will pour in investment. Hoteliers will be here, tourists will be here, and so on. And clean up in every sector. I can talk about this until the cows come home, but we have actually downgraded our education product in the country by mismanaging the education sector. Look at the universities we have. Do you know how much money we would be making as a country if we managed our education sector very well, especially the higher education sector? All these people in the region, some from sub-Saharan Africa, will be students in universities in Kenya, and they'll be paying fees. Countries like the UK, many countries in the north, you see them here holding education expos, recruiting students, and so on. That's how our education product has been mismanaged without a target of raising our numbers. And by recruiting, foreign students, and through that we get some, foreign exchange, and so on and so forth. So all of it boils down to, in my view, governance and management of the country. And the key, I honestly think, is firm, courageous, and forthright management of the country. And that's the value proposition I bring.
So we've always had the phrase of taking people to somewhere. So the present presidency is taking us to Singapore. Singapore started with housing. So right now we have the whole affordable housing thing, which is very controversial because there is the housing levy. So would the housing levy stay, and what would happen to the people who have bought the houses? Because we've had some of the candidates in the opposition say, don't buy the houses because we are going to take them away from you. So what are your views on that?
This is not a matter on which I can speak on behalf of the opposition, but it's a matter on which I can say clearly that personally, as Fred Matiang'i, I think the whole policy needs to be relooked at. We tried this when we were in government. Instead of being a forced contribution scheme, it should be a voluntary contribution scheme.
Yes.
And and there are many other ways we can do this to achieve the purposes. In introducing a package of incentives and drawing in investors from other sectors or tributaries of the economy, like SACCOs and so on, to savings funds to invest in housing. It's a better way of doing it than what we are doing right now, because the way it is being done right now is haphazard. And I agree with many people point out that you look like it was intended to achieve another objective, not really provide housing and shelter to the people of Kenya. Because when you look at the cost of the houses that we are talking about, the way it is being done, people have got very serious issues. I would rather it's a voluntary contribution scheme. I would rather we shifted responsibility and paid regulatory advantage and provided a package of incentives to other investors and players to get involved in that industry, instead of the government stepping in the forceful manner in which it's being done. And it doesn't really, augur well. And there are many questions that have been asked about this. I keep saying it could be a good plan and a good intention, badly executed, badly implemented. I wouldn't say that you will walk away from it and then throw away the houses. We'll have wasted resources. It's a question of sitting down and figuring out how do we both, ensure that what has been done on it is not wasted,
Yes.
but then how do we build on a new trajectory that reduces the pressure on the pay slip, but at the same time provides an opportunity for those who are able in an incremental manner to get shelter.
Okay. So last question. I want you to talk to the Kenyan, the average Kenyan who will be voting next year. Tell them why they should vote for you and focus on quickly jobs, quality of life, and last but not least, the topic that we argued a little bit about, which is insecurity and police brutality.
I keep the most humble way to state this is that what drives me to seeking leadership and asking the people of Kenya to consider my candidature is because everywhere you look in our country, you feel like there's a call. There's a call to clean up the education sector. I mean, the madness going on and the confusion is unbearable. I don't see how we can engage in this level of wastage of our children and our brain trust. When you look at the security sector, you feel there's a call. I mean, how is it that 63 years after independence, We have people with rungus and arrows marauding around and moving all over the place. I saw the embarrassing case of a clergyman holding an arrow in church, pointing out, that arrows were being hurled at worshippers in a church Sunday. I mean, it's beyond ordinary imagination that is happening in our country. I am for firm, decisive, and straightforward management of the country. Kenyans, we are better than this. And I'm here because I know we are better than this. And our country needs fixing. It's not that we don't have system, we do. It's not that we don't have institutions, we do. It's not that we don't have manpower, we do. We have the resources and the wherewithal to run a better country, to manage our country in a better way, so that this is the home that it ought to be. Kenya is our only home under the sun, and we each have a responsibility to make it a better place than we found it. I am ready to work with fellow Kenyans to make this a better place than it is today, because I know we are better than this. That's why I always end interviews by saying, in this call, it's like the famous words in Prophet Isaiah. The Lord is asking, who will go for us? And I'm saying, send me.
Iko nene?
Aya, iko hiyo.